All right, this is going to be my follow-up Eugenics video to my last one about my pre-release thoughts, and this one is going to talk about my kind of feelings on the game, my ideas about the game, where it's going, because it's getting two DLCs eventually. So this video is also kind of going to double as like a DLC prediction video and also like a review video as well. So it's going to combining the two ideas together. Originally, I was just going to do like a Eugenics review video, but I was like. Oh, well, spoiler alert, I don't have perfect thoughts about the game, so I didn't want to just make it like a negative video. I was like, oh, I hate this game, oh, it's bad. Like, that's not fun or creatively fulfilling for me, so I wanted to also combine that with some positive stuff I do like about the game, and also combine it with some ideas and predictions for DLC. So it's kind of like a fun video to make. And you may notice I'm using this is a PowerPoint here. I'm doing this in a PowerPoint. Before this, I used to just like use a web browser for my videos, and like each little slide would be like a tab, and it's like that's essentially a PowerPoint. So what I'm doing now is I want to make my videos with PowerPoints because I'm only doing it because I really don't like video editing. You know, it's a whole process. You got to render it. You got to make sure all the timing's right, the frames are right. I just want kind of like an improvisational, conversational video where I can talk about the game freely. I don't have a script. I don't have anything. I can just speak my mind about the game, and it's conversational. It's spontaneous. You know, if a thought comes up, I can just say it while I'm making the video. You know. Oh, actually, I should say I'm not making this as a PowerPoint. I'm making this as a LibreOffice Impress file. I just use PowerPoint because it's easier to understand. But you know, it's just something I want to do because I feel like I can have both like kind of customized slides, and I can also have like a spontaneous dialogue about the game. So it's educational as well. I have all this information out, all these images, and we can have like kind of a discussion. Like I'm a teacher and I'm explaining to you all about the Edmund lore and eugenics, and explaining all my ideas and thoughts. And you can raise your hand, and I can point to you and say, "Yes, Timmy, what's your question?" And you can say, "What kind of women does Edmund like?" And I can say, "Oh, yes, he likes thick bitches," because I saw some Tumblr posts about that. And I can link it exactly to you. So I'm trying to educate you on what Edmund's deal is and his game and what I think about it. It's supposed to be like an educational conversation. I'm Professor Schweed here talking to you about eugenics and Edmund lore because I'm a freaking autistic person. Anyways, let's continue here. So first we're going to talk about my thoughts about the game. And spoiler alert, I did not complete the game because there is stuff in eugenics I definitely do love. But I could not necessarily finish the whole game. I just did not have the patience for it. I probably definitely could, but at the time it was very draining on me. And this is something I'm going to be talking about later. I think if I had to choose one word to kind of describe eugenics, I mean, besides like chaos, of course, or cats or meow, I would probably just choose the word exhausting because it can be a very, very overwhelming game. It's not a pick up and play game like Isaac, for example. It's a game you have to be committed to. You have to think about possibilities, a lot of possibilities, and planning things and breathing. And there's a lot of elements and a greater kind of concept for the game that you can't just hop in the game and like, oh, I want to do a run. You can't do that. And I'll speak about that later. But what really stopped me from playing eugenics, besides a lot of the exhausting aspects, was just a lot of design decisions kind of just exhausted, frustrated me. It's not to say I hate the game. I just don't have the patience to complete it. Are my opinions validated because of this? I mean, possibly. But I just, hopefully, with what I know, I feel like I can at least give you some insightful opinions about what the game is about. And right now, I like the game. I like the game conceptually. It's just like, I really wish it was available in some form of tactics gameplay. Like, I could just pick up and play that and have a good time, rather than worrying about a lot of other things, which I will explain in a bit. So DLC, overhaul mods, whatever. I'm just kind of waiting for the game to simmer down. But this is part of the reason why I took so long to make the video, because I really wanted to, think about this for a bit and, let the game kind of, the hype simmer down a little bit, just so I can give a more, clear and detailed explanation of the video rather than just like a very simple first impressions video. And just to say, I did stop the game at the transceiver antenna quest in Act 3 to the end, where you get all the randomized spells, because that kind of necessarily precludes you from, well, you have to kind of breed cats, especially in Act 3, and like get good stats, get good starting abilities, and like get good items to have like a really smooth experience, especially with that quest, because you're mostly relying on basic attacks and whatnot to kind of get through it. And if you don't have good basic attacks, you don't have good like a solid strength stat, you're going to be relying on your spells, and eventually the spells are going to randomize into crap. You're going to get like Forbidden Fart as a spell, and it just you have to kind of prepare for that. And at that point, I was like, I don't really want to do this anymore. I will say the house bosses, I did at least finish up to C1000, and I won that boss fight with total sheer luck because I had a necromancer with blood frenzy, or not blood frenzy, blood geyser, and C1000 copied the necromancer, just instantly died from that. So, but that was I was just like, yeah, I guess that can happen in the game, and I kind of just maybe lose interest a little bit. But there's stuff in the game I do like, and I will talk about that right now. And there's stuff in the game I don't like, which I will talk about right now. Number one thing I don't like in the game: events. Right in the end, right here, we have images of the most notorious event in the game, of course. Well, the second most notorious as well, the Stephen Fetus. But initially, well, this has been fixed in the 1.1 beta patch. Will probably be released soon enough. But blood frenzy is a very divisive disorder you can just randomly get while playing the game, and you have to account for it. And if you don't account for it, things can go bad. But I'll explain what I mean. So events are the kind of breaks in between combat encounters where something happens, like a random thing happens, and like you have to randomly one of your cats is chosen, and you have kind of skills that need to be tested. So these skill checks. This whole concept is borrowed from Dungeons and Dragons, which is something that Evan's a very big fan of, and he wanted it for his own game. And I think there's a difference between having those in a single-player game, strategy game, especially like Mewgenics, and also something like a social kind of tabletop game, as in Dungeons and Dragons, right? Because part of the appeal of events is that they're flavorful. Like oh, what's happening to my cat now? It's like oh, he's got splinters in his paws. He's going to break a window. He's going to pull a knife out of the wall. He's going to go into the hole from that one manga artist's thing, right? Junji Ito. And, you kind of have to... It's sporadic. It's interesting. But part of my gripe with these events is that there's not really a lot of decision-making that goes into them. Typically, almost always, you're either ignoring the event, if you can, because there's always a possibility you get something very debilitating to your cats, like... For example, the blood frenzy event, but that's an event you can ignore. But I guess something like Organ Grinders event, where you had to pick between a parasite or disorder. If you ignore him, then you get tragedy events, which can then lead to blood frenzy. So basically, the optimal play in almost all cases for these events is just to pick the greenest option, whatever stat your cat has, because that's the least likely thing. That's the least likely chance your cat has of experiencing something bad happening to them. And the penalties and the benefits you get from events are very. I mean, I think it's very debilitating in some cases in Mewgenics, especially with all the disorders and whatnot, that some of the stuff you can get from events can kind of ruin builds and ruin a lot of fun. But the best possible event is probably like the one that levels up all your cats in your party, and like that's probably or gives you like a stat or whatever. So if you get something good in an event, it's not going to be like it's going to be like, all right, it's pretty cool, it's nice. But if you get something bad in an event, it's going to be like, oh my god, all the fun is drained from my body. So basically, my main gripe with events is that, you can, it's very shallow. It's very shallow. The decision making, which is something with the strategy game, is that's what I really like, is that like you have to think about decisions you make and pick something that's best. And evaluate all the options in your head. But with skills, it's very, very shallow. And I foresaw this even when the game was coming out and the footage was coming out from end streams and whatnot. It's like he gets to these events and it's like, okay, why would you not pick the greenest option in all cases? And I was worried about that then. And then you play the game, it's like, yeah, it's like that. So right off the bat, I could tell there was something kind of off about them. And like I get it. You want your runs to be flavorful. You want them to have a story to them, like a continuity. But like once you get past that flavor, once you've seen all the events, they're just not really interesting anymore. And they're either whatever, you get a stat up or whatever, or you get blood frenzy, or you get some disorder, or you get something that ruins your fun, ruins what you're building, and it's just not very fun. And I guess these could be kind of contrasted to the curses from Isaac, like random kind of things that happen to your run and may punish you in some aspect. And with curses in Isaac, that was as like bad as it gets in terms of like a random unavoidable bad thing happening. And like what's that like Curse of the Blind in Isaac is like the least is the most bad thing, I guess. And like even then, that can be worked around in some aspect. And curses, I feel like like to someone who's really a big fan of Isaac, is something that's kind of agreed to. It's kind of like an annoyance of the game. That it's not really like a positive thing. It was kind of annoying in Isaac, but here they are in Mewgenics, but way more amplified and way more annoying. And like I recall Kilburn talking about Isaac Repentance development, that he said at some point he wanted to remove curses, but I guess that was probably vetoed by Edmund or something, because he's got to be flavorful, it's got to be wacky, it's got to be chaotic. And bottom line, I don't really like events, and especially with how unclear they are, right? This is something I'm going to be talking about in the very next slide, but they're very. If you don't know the outcomes of an event, you don't really know what's going to happen, right? Like, eventually you'll learn them, but like you can't meaningfully like strategize like, oh, these are the odds for this event or whatever, or like this is going to happen. Like eventually you just have to like kind of know that and intuit that, and it's again, I probably should just skip to this next slide now. Clarity. This is probably my second biggest issue with the game, a lack of clarity. And compounding what I said about events, you don't know what's going to happen until you eventually know them. I'll just say this with the clarity and Mewgenics. If Isaac was like a 2 out of 10 in its item descriptions report, like, with a very vague little blurbs, or maybe like a 1 out of 10, that's pretty bad. Like, you pretty much needed to. I mean, most like stat ups, for example, were pretty straightforward, but a lot of other items, you had to get them first and figure them all out. Of course, I know them all because I'm a professional Isaac gamer, but it's very different in Mewgenics here. Like, Mewgenics is a step up. I can absolutely say that. It's a much better job at explaining what things do. All the skills, I would say, are mostly, like, adequately explained, not to a great degree, but, like, you kind of get a good idea about what they do. But it's different in Mewgenics because Mewgenics is a strategy game. It's not like an improvisational action game. It's like, Isaac, if you don't know what an enemy does, like it takes like 2, 3, 4, 5 seconds to see what they do and all the extent of their moves and whatnot. They're very easily understood. I mean, some bosses, I guess, are more complex, but like, they're really not that bad. Like, you get one encounter with them, and then, and if you lose due to not knowing something, it's like, oh well, it's like a 20-30 minute run. Like, you can pretty much get back on your feet instantly. But with Mewgenics, it's very different because not knowing what something could do can have very, very punishing consequences, which is something I'll later explain. But I'd also like to speak about some choice descriptions as well. One big thing about the game is that a lot of the house bosses are explicitly not explained. They only have flavor text to describe them, what they do, and versus a lot of other enemies which have at least mostly adequate descriptions of what they do. But bosses, they are explicitly vague. This is something in the game's code. Like there's a commented out comment on like events or whatever on about house bosses that say the descriptions are intentionally vague. And that's kind of an issue for a strategy game where you have to like know beforehand, like, hey, this is what this boss does. This is how I will tackle them. This is my plan. And, it's not great, especially for a house boss, which requires commitment. Like, you have to bring in your best retired cats. You have to kind of guess what they're doing. And, like, of course, some people will say, oh, bro, this is what Ed and Tyler were thinking. Or, like, just know what they're going to do. Like, for Pyrophenia, for example. Yes, I can imagine it's a big fire-breathing lizard, a kaiju. It's going to shoot fire. But how is it going to shoot fire, right? How is it specifically going to do that? It doesn't say anything about that. Like, I didn't know about the what Pyrophenia's attack does, where it, she causes a big square of fire around the arena and pushes all your cats back. I did not know that, and I did not prepare for that. I had some water skills, but that was not enough to take out a lot of the fire, and I lost that fight, and it took me 1 or 2 more tries to beat Pyrophenia eventually. But, like, there's nothing saying explicitly that's what Pyrophenia does. Yes, I can imagine it's a fire-breathing lizard, but I can't say for specific what it's going to do, how it's going to breathe the fire, right? And it's not just Pyrophenia. Pyrophenia is not it's just an example. I also had an issue with Guillotina 3, where like, yeah, okay, it's a big lumbering corpse with maggots in it. Like, you can see that in the cutscene at least. But I did not know it was going to spawn mama maggot and have health. And that cost me a bunch of my retired cats. And I was prepared, like, oh, it's trying to chase its head. That's the gimmick. You don't want to have it get to its head. But, sorry, you didn't know it was going to spawn mama maggot and have health. And you didn't account for that. You didn't strategize about that. There goes your attempt. Go grind some cats again. Fuck you. And, it's not just the house bosses, too. Come Act 3, some of the enemy descriptions get worse. They don't explain everything. And I bring up Spewer here as an example. Spewer is notorious for other things, but one thing the Spewer boss does not mention in its description is that it does not mention that it will suck up your cats if you attack it in a straight line. Like, I know, I guess you could connect the dots and say, like, oh, hey, it's like those Corby enemies from the caves. It's going to do that. But no, it doesn't tell you about that. And how does the pills change his design, his behavior? You don't know that. It doesn't say that exactly. I mean, you'd have to know maybe from Spewer, like, oh, the red one is going to shoot a red liquid, it's going to shoot fire, and the Gish-looking tar one is going to shoot tar. Like, okay, I get it, but it does not tell you that in the enemy's description. It gives you a little overview, and then the little details you're going to have to figure out by yourself. And if you don't know that, you're getting screwed. And eventually they just give up with the actual non-house boss descriptions and say, in like the end, for example, the mother only has that as a description. Like the little clots next to it do have descriptions, but they don't paint the whole picture of what the mother actually does. And like, sure, you could play End is Nigh and like have a vague intention of what the mother might do. It's a big growing cancerous cell that's going to absorb everything. But someone who has not played End is Nigh might not necessarily know that, right? So, and I'm trying to think what else here might have that issue. I had another one on top of my mind, but I think that's good enough. But basically, you're not always going to know necessarily what. Oh yeah, yes, as well. I remember it. The Terminator bosses, the cat bosses. Like, if you haven't seen those two movies, like, you might not know necessarily what they do, right? Especially the C-1000. You're not going to, I mean, maybe from the cutscene you get the idea that it's a shapeshifter, but, like, how it's going to shapeshift, you know? I mean, the specifics of things are not fully explained, and that's very important in a strategy game where losing and not knowing what things might do can cost you the whole run. And a run in Mewgenics is not, it's not 20, 30 minutes. It can be an hour or 2 hours. It's a bigger commitment. So... And another thing as well, the item sets in the game, they are totally not explained. You don't know which items belong to which sets. You get an idea, but again, I don't want to like think what the designers were thinking. I want to know what the actual items do and what sets they're part of. I mean, this is part of the new item descriptions in Isaac. It's not here in Mewgenics because apparently, I mean, this is apparently something that was in the game before, and then they removed it later for clutter reasons. But it's like, I need to know that information. It's like... Again, this is why I say the descriptions of Mewgenics are like a 5 out of 10. And they explicitly endeavored for Mewgenics to be like a non-wiki game. Like, oh, Isaac is a game where you constantly need to have a wiki open. But it's like, Mewgenics is really not that much better. You're still probably going to need a wiki open if you want to know the finer details of things. And, you know, you can't make... Again, it's especially important in a strategy game for you to make informed decisions. And if you can't make informed decisions, then you're going to have a problem. And then you're going to lose, and it's like, it's not necessarily might be your fault, right? So... Again, I would really prefer if Mewgenics, you know, you can have flavor text for things. You can have the mother will take back what's hers as flavor text. You can also then have actual informational text that says, oh, this boss does this, and so and so and so. And, you know, you can have that. And there's no in-game reference to like, see what everything does. Like, you have to remember right off the top of your head if you remember something about an enemy, and, you know, that's not apparent in its description. Also, one more thing in Act 3, you have those, I think it was like those rat charging enemies, the mutations, and the mutated combined chimera creatures in the lab that randomly give you parasites. That's not mentioned in the description. So, again, these things could really be done much better. And here's a crazy idea. What happens if you want to be like a really good strategy game like Mewgenics? Like, what happens if like you could like zoom around the map and see all the coming enemy encounters and how much enemies there are, and like what in the harder modes, like what their elite buffs are, so you could like perfectly strategize in the future about what those enemies might be, or like, or sorry, how to like contend with them and strategize around them, like in your encounters. Like you can know, of course, you can know things that like, oh, Dybbuk is going to be at the end of Boneyard, or the Crater is going to be at the end of the Infinite. But like the specifics of that, excuse me, you could also like look at and like know beforehand, and then perfectly strategize beforehand. So it's like, I mean, that would be neat. I mean, one thing I should say is that, like, Edmund really likes his mystery. He likes being trolly. He likes being, you know, deceitful. He likes that. But you also have that in a strategy game, and that doesn't really work because you need explicit information in order to get the most out of a strategy game, right? So you have these two kind of differing ideologies. Like, oh, we should explain everything, but we also want to be mysterious and, like, you know, surprising and unique. And it's like, I think you should probably focus on that ideology more in a strategy game. I know you like your trolls. Edmund. You want to troll those players and give them random disorders and poop and pee and piss, haha. But like, let's step back for a bit. Let's drop the ego and like acknowledge you are making a strategy game, right? So you should probably be more mindful about what sorts of information you are including in the game and making sure it's comprehensive as possible so people can make informed decisions and strategize in the strategy game. But it's not that big of a deal. I did get to Act 3. I did do that eventually with some pain and torment, but besides Guillotine 3. But, you know, I'm just saying that if you want to truly ascend and make Mewgenics all that richer of an experience, there's something to consider. What's the next slide here? I don't even know. Right. House and breeding. The house gameplay and the breeding gameplay. So this is kind of the genesis of Mewgenics. This was the idea of Mewgenics, is that you're going to have this house full of a bunch of crazy cats. You can mutate them. They can have sex, and they can produce weird, crazy cats with the stuff from their parents, and there's infinite cats you can see. And it's like, that's great. That's great. That's cool that you're doing this, but like, this is also an aspect of the game you also have to contend with in order to enjoy the tactics part of the game, which I imagine a lot of people probably would want to do more than the the house part of the game. Like I understand it's a package deal, right? You have to have the house gameplay and you have to have the tactics gameplay, but you have to, if you want the best from Eugenics, you have to enjoy both. And the issue with the house gameplay is that it's kind of intensely annoying. Like I know it's supposed to be flavorful. You're a crazy cat lady. You're making weird-ass cats. You're making crazy abominations, as you see on the right here, with Lenny looking at these cats. But, it's not... If you make something intentionally annoying and chaotic, it's going to be annoying and chaotic. Like, I don't know what to say. Like, I know Edmund's a very distinct personality type. He's got various neuroses, and he might enjoy this kind of chaos. But if you're going to make something intentionally devoid of, I'll say this word again, quality of life, and, this polish, then yeah, people who don't like that are gonna have problems with it. And unfortunately, I'm that kind of person. And the house gameplay, I mean, you could say there's something flavorful about it, but once you get over that flavor, once you realize, oh, I'm playing a video game, I'm spending my time to play this video game, and what it's doing is being annoying intentionally, then I'm gonna have kind of a problem with that. And it's an issue because it's not just all the cats in your house, all the meowing and jumping around. You have to kind of isolate them and pick around. Like, oh, here's this cat here. I need to breed with this other cat. I need to put this in this room here. It's very exhausting and overwhelming. Not only that, you have to deal with the cats, but you also deal with the item management. Between runs, you have this whole storage of items, and you got to think about them. It's like, okay, but the issue with items is that I don't know what I can use these items for eventually. I might need them. I might need them for later. I might not know what I might get from strays or from breeding. I mean, you could kind of influence that through the furniture, simulation and or stimulation and appeal and whatnot. But you're not going to have a clear idea of where specifically you want to go. But you want to keep items anyways and be a hoarder, right? Because there might be some case where the items might eventually be useful. But you have so many items, and then every time you finish a run, you have to sort through them. You have to pick which ones you don't want and which ones you want. And it's I might not necessarily know that, right? I mean, I can get an idea, I can get a clue, but that's something that's always presented to the player every time they finish a run, right? So this is part of the reason why I said the game was very exhausting for me, because you have to always think about these things every time you play the game. You can't just hop on a run, play the game. You got to think about your cats. You got to think about your items. You got to think about all these things. And one more thing with the house gameplay is there's nothing really stopping the player from grinding mutations or grinding furniture and grinding these things and just making the perfect OP cat, and this whole bloodline of cats with the extra turn mutation, the head mutation that's so important, and then just getting the super skills. I mean, at some point in time, you can say Fist of Fate, Hunter's Boon, Nail Flurry, Flow State, those things which have been nerfed, by the way. But even then, there's still infinites in the game. You can just breed those infinites onto your cats eventually with enough grinding and patience, and then just steamroll the game. And there's no more fun to be had because you've already solved the game. Not through improvisation during a run, but because of stuff you did before a run, like busy work and homework, to eventually then just steamroll the game. So if you don't want to do that, that's always going to be leaning over your head. It's going to be over your shoulders. It's oh, why don't you just grind Act 1 runs and get more furniture and then, make these super duper human cats. And then, if you're having trouble with Act 3, you can always just do that. You don't have to, oh, I just need to think better. I need to strategize better in Act 3, fighting spear or whatever. But, you it's always going to be over you. It's always going to be over you. It's just making super uber cats and then steamrolling the game. So that's kind of an aspect I have that's kind of an issue for me, because it's if I can just metagame the game, I mean, then why should I play the game, right? I mean, you can always just say, oh, you shouldn't do that then. I mean, that's what I did. That's what I did in the game. But eventually you run into a roadblock in the game where you do have to probably breed and get better stats on your cats anyway, all 7s on your cats. And it's ones I don't want to do that. Ones I just want to, get some cats and figure it out. You can't do that. So you have to face the breeding. But if you deal with the breeding, then you also have to deal with the reality that you could also just grind and get super cats and then beat the game. So it's it's a catch-22. It's you can't play improvisationally, because then you'll get screwed. And if you play super optimized, then you get fucked by because you've reduced all the fun in the game, because the fun in the game comes from decision making, comes from improvisation. But if you remove the improvisation, then what is there? So, right, that's my brain about house gameplay. But it's a chore a little bit, intentionally so. It's exhausting to get through, but you can put furniture in your house, I guess, and I guess I have another slide for houses here. It's a fundamental aspect of the game, right? This is what the game was conceived around, so you can't remove it, because then Edmund's going to cry, right? Because this is the core of Eugenics apparently to him. But if the house isn't fun, but the tactics gameplay is, I mean, then you don't want to do the house gameplay. You want to play the tactics gameplay. But there could be some people out there who are like, oh, I want to play Mewgenics because I want cute kitties and I want nice furniture. I want to decorate my house and make it look all nice. And like, if you want to do that, well, eventually you're going to contend with like, oh, you have to get food and like you have to do runs, and maybe you might not enjoy that as much as the house gameplay. Like if you're like a woman and you like your social sims or your Animal Crossing and you want that, you have to also deal with the other side, of the game. And again, it's a package deal. You have to enjoy both to enjoy the game. If you don't enjoy both, then you're not going to fully enjoy Mewgenics. So that's kind of my spiel about the houses and the house gameplay specifically. Let's see what here. Okay. So the game can be quite punishing. If you're playing a tactics run, you're having a good time. The game is not necessarily designed around you having like a baseline, like a baseline run. Like an Isaac, for example, like you have the characters of Isaac, right? And Isaac, Magdalene, Cain, whatever. And the game can be kind of built around their statistics, right? Like players are going to have like these stats at this point in the game usually. So we can then design the floors to kind of be based around that. But because of Mewgenics, your runs can be whatever, right? I mean, you can have whatever super cats at any time, or you can have weak, pitiful cats. There's going to be cases in the game where it's probably very, very unlikely, unless you get very good RNG in some cases, like on crits or whatever, that you just lose a run, and it's going to happen. Like, maybe it's a skill issue on my part, but I'm sure absolutely there are cases where even pro Mewgenics players, they get a bad event, they get a bad roll on things. They have to eventually use Steven. And the issue with Steven is that the game kind of belittles you for using Steven, but you kind of are heavily encouraged to use Steven anyways, because it's kind of Steven is kind of like a band-aid solution on the game. Like, rather than having like an undo button or something, you can't have an undo because of the RNG, right? Because you could always just undo your action, like try to get a better roll or whatever. But so Steven is there to like kind of put a band-aid on the RNG. Like, oh, if you get screwed by RNG, you can just use Steven and just try again. And it's like, that's not really good design, right? But especially when you do die in the game, like if you're gonna pull up your bootstraps and oh, I'm not gonna use Steven, I'm a pro gamer, I'm just gonna roll the punches. Then, I mean, what you do get for losing is nothing. You lose all your cats, you lose all your items. Very early on, if you don't have like a big pool of cats already with super mutations, then, there goes a bloodline if you lose, and you get nothing back. Even if you upgrade Organ Grinder to the max, all you get for Organ Grinder is one item. One item out of like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 2 of those items are going to be food and coins. Both things that, food is plentiful. You're never going to run out if you're doing a run every day. And coins, I mean, you only get 99 per run. And even then, it's not that much. You're never going to pick those 2. So you're only left with like a few other items you could pick. And it's only one. It's only one item from your run. From all your cats, from your inventory, that's all you get. Just one to pick from. It's like, it's very extremely punishing. And you can go in a death spiral, like, if you're still repeatedly attempting like Act 2 or Act 3 runs with progressively weaker and weaker cats, you're gonna have a progressively less likely chance to win those runs, and so you can kind of go in a death spiral, right? If you're being a little cocky and think like, okay, that run was not great. Surely this next run will be better, and I'll get better skills, I'll get a better archetype of my classes or whatever. And sometimes you just don't get that, and you can go in a death spiral. And tough luck, you just lose your cats and lose everything. It's like I think a solution to be is that like as you upgrade Organ Grinder, he also gives you more stuff. Like he just, instead of one item you get to pick, he gives you like 25% of your inventory or 50% of your inventory, and eventually like maybe a max upgrade. How about this? This is gonna be a very spontaneous Edmund Core idea I had. He makes a flesh golem of your cat. And it's like made of parasites or whatever. And it's like, oh, here's your cat back. It's perfectly fine. And maybe it has like less stats or whatever, or it has like a disorder or something. But, at least you get your cat back in some capacity, right? I think that could be kind of an interesting compromise. I think basically it's just too slanted to like, if you lose your run, you are totally screwed. And, it's not just like an Isaac run where like, oh, you just lost the run, just try again. No, because in Mewgenics, you lose your meta progress, you lose all these things. There's so much you lose, and yet there's not much relief when you do lose. I mean, furniture kind of acts as like a permanent, progression, right? You expand your house, you fill it with furniture, you have a higher stimulation, higher appeal, so you can progressively, more easily get back to where you were if you are in a death spiral. But still, I mean, I think there could be a bargain here and make it more generally fair to people who might be going on these death spirals. So, and of course, you also have issues with quests as well. I do know, I haven't gotten to this point yet, but I do know that the final quest of the game has you go to like 3-4 different runs and kill bosses and to make a nuke to eventually kill the creator with. If you screw that up at any point, you have to start all the way over again, and that's not fun. Sorry. And they have the persuasion device as well. I mean, you can just get locked out of your game if you lose that. I mean, or locked out of an achievement if you do lose that. I mean, I understand it's the first quest item. You want to kind of ease people into that with a very powerful one, and I'm just saying it's kind of annoying that if you screw up the quest, you lose it permanently. And your save file is permanently locked at 100%. Sans the Pyrofinas every time, I think. So whatever. That's my rant about the game being very punishing. Okay, we also have to talk about the grind of the game. So if you want a good position in these runs, you have to be as prepared as possible, right? And of course, I talked about breeding. If you prepare too much, then the game becomes unfun. But not only do you have to prepare too much for that, or prepare now, whatever, you know what I mean. You also have to prepare, like, you have to grind NPC levels. You have to get your Butch level up to get more item storage. You have to donate a shit ton of kittens to Tank to get basic breeding amenities. You have to, if you want more rooms in your house, you have to give a shitload of retired cats to Frank, and that can be, that's, you almost have to grind runs eventually if you want the max house size. I get it. Eugenics is a long-term game. You might not always be progressing, but some of these numbers are quite absurd for what's going on with your game, right? And of course, you could just grind furniture too if you want better stimulation, better appeal, better health, better mutation. If you want that too, you can also just grind furniture, and you can grind these things, which is, it's not fun just to grind over and over again. I know the game is inherently fun with improvisation and strategizing, but it's not going to be totally fun and dandy and great if you're also like, if doing that precludes you, grinding for a very long time to do that. So there's a bit of a grind in the game. That's all I can say. And there are some enemies and bosses in Eugenics that I think are not great. They are not great. And this isn't to say, it's skill. You just have a skill issue. It's just for these bosses, you kind of just have to they're just kind of checks. You have to have good enough stats. You have to have a ranged attack. You have to specifically build around them in order to get through them. And I have some examples here: Dybbuk, Spewer, Marshmallow, mostly on solo runs. Again, these bosses are not impossible. They're not impossible, but you have to specifically build around them. And I know you can strategize around that, but I think part of the fun is here's what you got, here's what you're facing, here's how you're going to deal with it, right? Rather than if you don't roll something like splash damage on Dybbuk or something like that. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm not saying it's extremely unlikely. It's quite likely you will at least have something to contend with these bosses, but you still have to acknowledge them and build around them. And I understand it's a strategy game, you have to do that, but there's a difference between something like Alien Queen, which is more the Crater Maker, as her name is now, where that's a fight you have to strategize during the fight. Here's the different attacks, the chomp attack, the different attacks that they cycle through. That's something you have to think about during the events of the battle. But for some bosses like Dybbuk, you have to intentionally plan around them much before and make sure you have something for that, or else you're screwed, right? Especially in Dybbuk, if you possess your cats, there are some cases where you could just lose from that. In a solo run, for example, I've seen a video of some guys that gets instantly crit by Dybbuk as soon as he's possessed. So there was something, and so there's some minor annoyances as well, like bats. In the caves. Yeah, they're not that bad, but they're kind of annoying because they have 50% dodge chance as well. And some of the elite buffs as well in the harder modes can be quite annoying to deal with, particularly absorbent. Because I was doing my first hard mode run. My first hard difficulty run, and at the very end of the run, Spinneret gets absorbent, and I had not known about that at all. And because if you have higher tier spells that use more mana on your cats, eventually they're gonna be whittled down very, very quickly. But if you're not using all your mana, and that can be something that's very, very annoying to deal with. And that's random. You don't know that Spinneret is gonna have absorbent, right? You have to have a catalog of all possible elite buffs in your head as soon as you know about them. And then you have to strategize about pretend that every enemy could potentially get one of these at all points, and that can be quite annoying. And I haven't gotten to here yet, but I've heard stories about the creators' cat clones that it's pretty much just an advantage check. You have to build super powerful cats to beat the creator in the first place, but he's going to use those super powerful cats to get you. And the only difference is that who goes first, right? So you have to make sure that like you have higher speed or whatever, and that you can get over them, and that can be kind of annoying. And one little mini rant here. There's two things in the game that greatly perturb me. It's Fenrir and the Toadies disguising, and pretty much all their design is like, do you know where their traps is? Do you know where their traps are? Or is it, I guess in Fenrir's case, sorry. And like, yeah, you could easily figure that out if you just like put marks on your screen, like, hey, here's where the traps are, and they go invisible just because. Why not? That's not really like a challenge. It's just like if you mark where the traps are on your screen, then the traps are over. The challenge is over. Like you already know what their deal is, but they're made invisible anyways because why not? And Fenrir is like the only boss like this, and it's just kind of I'm not saying it's an Act 1 mini boss. It's not hard, but it's not fun. It's not fun, right? Because it's just kind of an arbitrary thing, like, oh, they're invisible. Now you have to memorize them. It's like, oh, okay. And that also it also makes me think of another problem, the pathing of the cats. You can't pick the paths of where your cats go. Now, I know Tyler has been very adamant about this. He's like, oh, it's fine. You just pick where your cat goes, and 99% of cases it'll be fine. But, like, there are some cases where how your cat moves can affect things, like trample, for example, walking through fire. I know he's touched that up, and it's hard to, like, kind of properly, like, describe, like, what the issues might be. But I distinctly know there are some cases in the game where how your cat moves is important. Like, I don't think that's something that's that's arbitrary and you don't need to think about it. Like there are some cases where you do need to think about that, and what else here? It just like I feel like it's something like Fire Emblem. Like you can just like hover over your unit and like you kind of mouse over where you want them to go. Right? I'm reminded of the GBA Fire Emblem. It's like would Mewgenics really be that radically different if like you could do that? Like I don't think many challenges in the game would be radically altered if you can manually choose the cat's path. Like, and it's something to think about too, right? Because like I need to manually choose this cat's path. I need to like manually like dodge out of the way. It's not like I have to like kind of gamble and hope that the pathing works this time and I don't get fucked over. Like I understand there's an aspect to that. I'm not saying that they're both like one's directly better than the other. I just think generally if the pathing was you could just set it. Like I don't think anyone would like say like, oh, it should be random. I think it'd mostly be fine if you could just path manually with your units, just like mouse over them, draw a path, and the cat goes that path. And also the same thing with Fenrir's invisible traps. The Toadies disguising in caves. Again, it's a similar kind of arbitrary challenge. Just like know where they are in disguise. It's like a memory game. Like I understand you want to be quirky, you want to be mysterious, Edmund. I know you want to be a little trolly, but like I feel like those designs just don't necessarily fit in a game like this, right? Like it's a strategy game. It should be you have this information relayed to you. Go figure out a strategy rather than like, oh, it's a memory game. It's a puzzle game now. I'm not saying it's impossibly hard. It's impossibly bad. I'm just saying it's a nuisance. It's a minor nuisance. Okay. And the balance of the game, I can't really say too much because they're still patching the game. They're still kind of ironing out the kinks. Originally on base release, Tinker and Mage were just kind of poopy. Like a lot of their spells were just like, what am I supposed to do with this, right? Like they're just kind of random crap you get, and like you can't really design something good. Versus something like Hunter, which is so like, it still is like effortlessly broken. Like there's still, even if you don't get like Scattershot, you still have like a bunch of good passives and abilities on Hunter, and there's so many of them, and they're all so good. And Hunter is in a tier of its own. Like on all class tier lists, Hunter has been always the toppest tier class. It's not even contest, and like. Mage and Tinkerer, they kind of had to work for it. I'm not saying that all classes at that time, like those classes were like, oh, you can't do shit with them, they're fucking useless. But like, there was very clearly like a stark difference between those two classes in terms of like, or those three classes, Mage, Tinkerer versus Hunter, that are like very, very stark. Like Hunter, like if you just have like a regular ass Hunter, it's gonna be pretty damn good versus a Mage or Tinkerer. Or sometimes like, hey, you might pop off, you might get like Paw Missile Mage, Tinkerer, you might get Mech Suit or something with tech, of course, and build something good. But it's like you might not always have that. And now they're better. They've been buffed across the board. I haven't really given a good chance yet, but I feel like again, this isn't something I'm too caught up on because these things can always be addressed as they are. Like it's not really too much of a deal. Like sometimes you'll get something good, sometimes not. Like I'm fine with how the game is going to be balanced. Like it's not really a big issue for me. But I will say one thing that does annoy me though, it's kind of related, is how the game handles difficulty. So you have hard, crazy, and impossible modes, which are just kind of like escalating stat bloat, really. Like the enemies get more elite buffs, they get more health, and that's kind of it. And that's kind of lazy to me. I mean, I feel like if you have champion enemies, maybe they have new behavior. They have like some kind of interaction that makes. I know the elite buffs kind of started to have that and kind of made the gameplay more dynamic. But I feel like it's kind of lazy. Like, oh, this enemy is absorbent. This enemy has makes a sandstorm when it gets hit, or like the other ones like bouncy or whatever. It's like, yeah, like I guess that's different. I guess that's a substitute for like interesting game design. I guess I feel like you could have. You just have like I don't know why there's 3 modes either. It's kind of redundant, like hard, crazy, and impossible. Like eventually you're just probably gonna choose impossible to get all the unlocks, and like what's the point of hard and crazy? Like I feel like you could just like have like a hard mode or something, and that gives the new enemies behaviors and whatnot. Or maybe like I guess you can still escalate in something. I don't know. It's very kind of arbitrary in some aspect. And again, I've talked about the baseline issue before, where there's no baseline for how good your cats are at like a certain point. So like the runs like Act 3, for example, like are kind of like higher stat checks, but like you can't really like design around what cats the player is going to have or like what they're going to use. So like sometimes you can just get fucked, and that's it. But not much more to say about that. And one little minor thing as well, I have ADHD. I'm a zoomer. I have algorithm brain. You know, all the social media, all this doom scrolling has reduced my brain to mush. And any kind of downtime in a game, I get intensely, irrationally angry over. And I feel like there's a lot of downtime Mewgenics. I know all the animators did a splendid job, and I could see their animations, and they're very good. They're very well done. But once you see them the first couple times, you don't need to see them much more after that, right? So, and there's a lot of downtime in general between the game, like all the UI effects, like the ambush or the begin battle, whatever. I don't remember the exact word for it is, but there's a lot of interruptions in the game that like you can't really get like it's good. It's not that bad. Again, this is a pretty minor issue in all things, but like I feel like you could definitely tighten it down. Like I've talked about this before. Like Isaac is very fast-paced game. You go from room to room. The boss intros you can skip. The floor intros you can skip. It's a very fast-paced game. You can get through a run very, very quickly because of that. And Mewgenics is a little more bloated because of that. Because even on higher combat speeds, that's still not really enough to kind of get rid of a lot of downtime. So I have some examples here. Watch cats move on map, level up, intro, outro, combat, enter, exit, item floaters, as they're called, the little white icons, the white bubbles about items going to your inventory. I believe in a patch they did allow you to open up your inventory while those are going. But I feel like this could be taken much further and making Mewgenics a very, very smooth and rapid experience. So you can go through a run much more quickly. It's not to say that the UI is bad, I don't want to see it, or like all the little animations. They're good. I just feel like if you cut down a lot of that, you could get a run down to a much more manageable time. So like if you have like a chunk of your day out and you'll play Mewgenics run, it's going to take like an hour instead of like an hour 30, right? So I feel like that'd be there is the combat speed, but that's not really adequate. Like it's a global combat speed. If you want to change it while you're playing, like okay, like maybe I want to see the animation of this boss at one point, and like I'll set it down briefly and then I can see that. But like I feel like the best solution is just like a fast forward button. Like something like Fire Emblem has this. Like you just press a button, all the animations go rapid, quick. And the issue with the global combat speed setting is that in some cases it does cause like desyncs. Like I know that's a natural effect of things. Like before Tyler's like, oh, you can't say that, but like I know that's gonna happen because you can't play sounds at 2 times the speed, right? But it does cause some clarity issues as well, because something like Chaos's boss fight, they did fix this in the patch. I did see that when he's changing forms and adapting the moves to other bosses, he does this very quickly at higher combat speed, so you can't really immediately register that. But that's kind of like a problem of just like not mentioning what forms he's currently in his description. Like you can just do that instead of like having this band-aid solution. It's like, oh, if you have a higher combat speed and you want to know what form it is and you didn't catch it with the very quick time it takes, then just have it in his description. But like again, the game has a very big issue with clarity. I know that's a big issue, but I feel like something could be done about that. But basically, I want to see the animations sometimes. They're very nice animations, but I don't want to put my whole game at 2 times, 3 times speed just to like have like a decent quick run. So I would just say add a fast forward button. You press it, the game sets to 2 times speed, 3 times speed, and you can just play it 1 time normally. But like if you want to fast forward a little bit, the cat's moving too slow, then you press the button. It's pretty good. But that's my spiel on that. All right, so I want to talk about the positive things of the game for once. So it's mostly aesthetic things, but I'm a big Edmund nut, so we can talk about these things. I can actually go from negative spiel to a positive spiel, and it can glowingly explain how I like all these things. So Mewgenics is like a fully realized Edmund style Flash vector art game, right? It's not just him doing all the vector art. I mean, not to give Edmund shade, but he's not the best animator. Even he acknowledges this, and like I do admire, like, you know, the kind of the amateur feel of a lot of his stuff, like the Meat Boy and Isaac cutscenes. I love those, even though they're a bit jank, they're a bit imperfect. I know he's an artist, and you know, everything to him, his socks are always bad. All stuff I did before sucks. Everyone can do it better. But like, as an outsider, I still appreciate it despite of that. But Mewgenics here is his style, but you got actual professional animators working on it. You got professional artists assisting him as well. So one thing with what he drew for the game, what Edmund drew for the game, is like all enemies, well, all units, but like only the pieces of them. He didn't animate them; it was just the pieces of them, so that animators could later do that. And it's like, I don't say that for sure, like, because like maybe he didn't do everything, but like I think he did. I think he did, but like something like the portraits as well. Those were done by Takaro the Mew. Those are different, but all the units, all the pieces were done, and then animated later by other people. All the cats, some UI, etc., etc. He had some other artists assisting, and most notably, I would say, is Sony Shock here, who does the painterly style, as you can see here by the cat presenting their booty hole here. Yeah, that kind of painterly style is very, very distinct for the game, and like part of the inspiration for the game was old cartoons as well. And so he got Sony Shock, this painterly artist, to do like kind of the backgrounds as well, like kind of like a reference to the old cartoons, which, you know, you have the cell animation on top, and you have watercolor backgrounds on the bottom. And that's kind of what he's trying to go for here, which is a very interesting thing. Sony Shock's art is wonderful. I mean, definitely, I could say that. Very quirky, a little eccentric, but, you know, that's what Edmund likes. He likes different artists doing their own thing, and that's what they do. And the animators, of course, I got to give them a shout out. Marty Daniels, Chase Siddharth, Wes Ends, I'm going to say. You know, I'm going to be like a typical video as usual and say, like, oh, please forgive me for butchering these names, but, like... But you also have like the old furniture, ability skill icons, etc., which were done by Edmund as well. And the furniture was borrowed directly from the old 2013 prototype. So I mean, there's probably been some new furniture drawn, but like that's kind of interesting how he just took that like outright from a game from 12 years ago and put it in this game as it is. Like you can definitely tell that Edmund at the time kind of had a different art style a little bit. It's kind of interesting to see that, but like, you know, your purpose is what he's got. So I'd say the art of the game is quite well done. It's quite well done. It's Edmund's magnum opus. I'll say that to him. Okay, well, you cannot talk about Mewgenics without immediately mentioning its soundtrack. And I've given some ridiculous some shade before on this channel, on some comments of mine that say like, oh, I still prefer Danny Baranowski, but no. Matthias and John made a soundtrack for the ages of this game. People have said this is the greatest soundtrack of all time in the game, and you know what? I can't argue with that. I cannot argue with that. You have a studio recorded, live produced, two professional musicians, Matthias from Sleepy Time Griddle Museum, working on this crazy soundtrack with a bunch of variety about cats, and it's utterly brilliant. And to put it into words is not going to help, you know, fully paint the picture of how good the music is. Of course, I could play it, of course, and just go listen to it. You know, if you play the game, you've heard it, you know how great it is, you know how fantastic it is, and you know, it's quirky, it's interesting. It's funny. The lyrics are funny. Sometimes it's tragic, like Chaos, for example. And that's one of Edmund's favorite songs. But I'll talk about my favorite songs here. The biggest standout song from the game for me was Feline Invader in the Crater level. And that song was just like, wow, Ridiculon made this? And it's like a jazz fusion track that goes all over the place. And it's like, when you immediately enter the area and you fight the mini-boss, it's like, oh shit, things are getting real, even though the area is not that bad. But, you know, that song just immediately stood out to me. And I on a site I frequent, I saw a poll like, hey, what's your favorite Mewgenics song? Feline Invader, easily top number one for a lot of people. I can absolutely understand that. That is just a very starkly standout song. But my second favorite song is a bit of a quirky pick. I kind of like to joke about this. Like being an adult is like when you realize that Tough is the best song on the soundtrack. That's when you grow up, is when you realize that Tough is the best one on the soundtrack. Because that one is just funny. You have Jeff Pearlman on the vocals and like the flute as well. And it's the Matthias Bossi doing that bow wow wow. I love that song so much, and the lyrics are funny. You know, I mean, some people get irrationally mad about like the flat Earth shit or like the global warming. It's like, but it's like, who cares? It's a dumb, stupid cat. It's commentary. It's funny. It's a funny song. It's the lyrics are funny. I mean, even though Jurassic is kind of like a weaker area, I still love Tough so much. That's such a funny song. I love it so much. But of course, you could say that about literally any song on the soundtrack. Of course, you could obsess about these things. But after 3 months of this game simmering, I think those are the two area songs I've kind of placed as my favorites. But of course, it's not just area songs in the game. You also have the songs from the original 2013 prototype of the game. You have the as radio songs, WMU, which is interesting. It's good to know that those songs are repurposed, and I really like those songs. Some of the songs are really good. Like my two favorites are Bravest Cat, which is just kind of sad, sappy song, and has a female vocalist crying it. I really like those songs with that kind of depth to them, that kind of tragedy to them. It's kind of something you wouldn't expect in a game like this, but I really like that stark contrast. And Kitschy Kitty as well. I really like that instrumental break in that one. Like, I'm trying to be contrarian here. I'm picking these random ass radio songs as my favorite. Just like, or why don't you like Eating Rats or Flush or Kitty Bones or Down with the Devil. It's like, I like those, but like I'm gonna be contrarian. I'm gonna pick these random ass radio songs and I'm gonna say screw you. Those are my favorites. And, Break has changed as well. This is a very weird song because this was originally the song for Caves. But things shifted around development. The throbbing / buried king, that's what the song is alluding to. But it's this very starkly different song. You hear it, and when you're into the radio, it's like, what the hell is this? I like it because of how different and like dramatic it is for the game, and it's very interesting. But I definitely see why they replaced it with Crystalline Dreams. Crystalline Dreams. I could just list every single song on the soundtrack, but I'm just giving you my top 5 here. I also like Tears in My Milk Bowl, Calamine Smoothie. All the radio songs are funny. It's cool to see repurposed 2013 music. I'm just reading from the slides here. And the different mixes as well. The music is like Isaac had the layered soundtracks for the floors and whatnot, and now here it's expanded even further. You have a main area mix for all the combat encounters. You have like a boss intro, and then the actual boss music, which has lyrics and sometimes new instruments added on top of it. And then you also have the events and the event mixes, which are like kind of like chiptune versions of the songs. And the math remixes, which are just like they remove the melody and it's only has like the harmony or the drums or the percussion. So, it's a wonderful soundtrack. It evolves. It's interesting. It's endlessly listenable, quotable, repeatable. And if it doesn't win best soundtrack of the Game Awards this year, there's gonna be violence in Minecraft, in Roblox, in Terraria, in Mewgenics. All right, so let's hop onto the lore here of the game, and I'm going to say total vindication alert. Total vindication alert. I said in my pre-release video that Isaac Smile would be the protagonist of the game, and lo and behold, she is. She is. I mean, it's really not that hard to see that, because the game clearly revolves around Isaac in some capacity. Like, you have the missing posters and like those trailers or whatnot. The first teaser trailer for the game was like it's like, in other news, the mother of that child has also gone missing. It's like, yeah, because obviously she's the protagonist of the game. It's like, who else in Edmund's universe is gonna be a crazy cat lady? It's gonna be the crazy cat lady, of course, who already has cats, and you want that character for that, and it's a house on the hill, obviously, and if you didn't see that, like, I don't know what you're doing. Like, were you not paying attention? Like, maybe people did know that, but they like didn't talk about it. I didn't really see like people say like, oh, Isaac Smile was the protagonist of the game. It's like, yeah, she is. She is. And I thought there'd be like some twist to it in my pre-release video, and the twist is that she's dead. She died in this game, and she was revived by beanies in the very first cutscene of the game. So, I mean, how did she die? We don't know that necessarily. Could be. If I were to speculate, if I was like an overdose or something, too much pills after coping with Isaac's death, and she's found and revived by Dr. Beanies after wandering into some ditch somewhere, and they have some implied past history with one another, so like there could be like repeating timelines. I'll talk about that in the plot a bit, but just wanted to talk about the broader strokes of the game's kind of themes as well. And nukes being central to the plot, you nuke the nuke God at the end. I mean, it's kind of obvious because the cover of the game has a giant nuclear explosion that Dr. Beans looks at. The first teaser trailer game had the giant exploding cat. The animated trailer had a giant nuke go off in the end. And obviously, nuclear explosions. The end of the world is something that's kind of recurrent in Emmons games, like Super Meat Boy and his Nye, of course. So it's kind of obvious. Like, if you're paying attention, well, of course, hindsight is 20/20, but I feel like those things were at least pretty obvious. But one more thing to discuss here is like this wacky world of Mewgenics. You're fighting, giant rats and flies and alien flora and demons from hell, and it makes you think like this also takes place in the same universe as Isaac. And isn't that kind of weird? Because like Isaac's whole thing is that like this world that Isaac goes into is imaginary. It's his dying dreams as he fades away in his chest. But like, and it's full of all of his creations. It's all of his memories coming back to attack him as he descends further and further into the box. But Mewgenics, those things are just real. So like Isaac could just go down the street and see like Dr. Beanie's making like cat abominations, and that's pretty funny. Like some people like I might have initially had a problem with this, but I thought about it more. And it's like, does it matter that much? Because like I feel like Edmund doesn't really care about continuity between his games. I mean, well, yes, he references things, he has rhyming things. I mean, the lore of Mewgenics itself has mom in it, but like it's his vision, right? You know, even if these things are kind of opposed, you know, like Isaac's world intensely being wacky and imaginary, but the actual physical world he lives in also being wacky, crazy, imaginary. You know, does it really matter too much? You know, it's just Evan's taste and things. He wants these wacky worlds and creatures inhabiting his worlds, and Mewgenics is still implied to be in the same continuity as like and his Nye, Meat Boy. So like these are just the world. This is just the world they live in. It's just Evan's taste on how he wants things to go. He wants to explore these things, even if it might potentially contrast with how Isaac handled these things. You know. It's something that can be explained, you know. It's not like, oh, he's going off the rocker, you know. And of course you have the Dr. Beanie's coming in at the end of the game. If you abstain from nuking God, he'll give you a lore dump and say, oh, you took Isaac, you took him. This is part of the same ramble about like did I say this? Is that no, I don't think I recorded this beforehand. I tried to do a little like a talk before this to kind of practice my talking, but Beanie's here, kind of at the outright end of the game. You know, kind of gives you a lore dump. It's like, oh, your son Isaac has died. You get revenge on this guy. But like with the creator, it's like and Magdalene as the protagonist of the game. Is it like, does she really have much autonomy? Like you're kind of just following whatever Beanie says in the game. And some people say like, oh, Isaac's mom is fighting God for revenge on him. But it's like the game kind of leads you to say that you're just kind of following Beanie's footsteps. You're just kind of doing what he says to do. So. Mom doesn't really have much autonomy in the game. She doesn't speak. She doesn't do anything. I mean, you are her, but like I don't really get the impression that like she's doing this on her own volition. I mean, you're just kind of doing it as a player. Maybe that is the intention. Maybe it wasn't. I don't know. But like it's just something to think about, I guess. So I also want to talk about the general what actually happens in the game. I've talked more about the ending, of course, but it's kind of the plot and the larger themes as well. Edmund said on Twitter that like, oh, people still haven't figured out what's going on in Mewgenics yet. It's like, brother. You didn't finish the game yet. The ending has a question mark to be continued, so it's not even finished yet. Can people really speculate? At least with Isaac, you know, Wrath of the Lamb, you could pretty much figure out the game's whole lore with the final chest ending. That's my favorite ending in the game, by the way. I should make a video about that. But you know, it's things in this game. There's still a lot of mystery to it that isn't really necessarily explained. Like, I have some theories, of course, and I will talk about them here. So. This image on the right is a kind of a schizophrenic image I made of a common recurrent symbol in Edmund's games here, of like an endless repetition of oneself. This kind of symbol here. So it's going to be kind of hard to see with YouTube compression here, but I have an image of Gertie here, who in Isaac was originally supposed to be like a pile of dead Isaacs, and was kind of, you know, that idea was scrapped because it was too hard to draw. But like everything in Isaac, intentionally, like the game's original intention is that everything was Isaac in some capacity, like, you know, twisted Isaacs, mountains of Isaacs, Isaac corpses. I mean, this idea kind of, you know, shifted as the game's vision kind of changed as it developed. You know, other people came in as well with the anti-birth theme, but you know that was kind of the essence of the game, is like Isaac is fighting himself, and of course you have the Isaac boss fight as well, and that's one of my favorite thematic boss fights in Isaac. But you know, it's not just Isaac that doesn't have this theme. It's also kind of reoccurring throughout Edmund's entire game. Is ludography, as they say. Time Cuck, of course, has a bunch of Stevens in the intro. Like everything is Steven. Steven himself is Steven all the way down to the molecular level. Time Cuck is kind of the central game to Edmund really, like this whole creative output. I will probably talk more about this in a dedicated lore video, whatever, going over everything in Edmund's games, all the symbolism, whatnot, and everything that repeats. But you know. This is kind of a central theme. It's like repetition, cycles, coping, you know, endless visions of oneself, endless repeating. Like, it's not just Time Cook and Isaac, of course. It's also Super Meat Boy. You also have the Meat Golem boss fight, which is a bunch of dead Meat Boys going to hell and forming a giant Meat Boy to fight Meat Boy. And you have the clones as well. And I mean, in terms of like thinking of like a homogenous blob of things of oneself, you could also kind of extend that over to the mother from the End is Nigh, of which I have some images here. The Ash eventually becomes part of, essentially, kind of absorbs himself into that. And, you know, everything is becoming one with Mother Nature and assembling, you know, becoming all the same, you know. It's a little looser with that, but there's definitely something you can look into there. I also have Hitler's Must Die here, which was part of a canceled Edmund game called No Quarter. I think was one aspect of that, but he might revive this eventually. But again, you fight endless amounts of Hitlers. You fight endless amounts of repeating characters, and this also extends to the Hitler in Eugenics. So he also has a bunch of Führer clones as well. So that's probably a reference to that. But it's just a theme that extends over to Edmund's various works. And of course, we also have Bumbo and Isaac as well. I did say Isaac previously, but of course you have all the different alter egos, which are just Isaac. Everything is Isaac. Everything is Bumbo. Everything repeats. Everything is the same. You have one character kind of derived and changed very slightly, but they're all the same. Everything is the same. And of course, the same could also perhaps be applied to Mewgenics. So you have Tink and Butch, which are clones of one another. They're laboratory twins separated by their cheek by Dr. Beanies. They're made by Dr. Beanies, and Dr. Beanies himself has a number of clones. Of course, there is the Rift one here. That one necessarily doesn't count, but the characters of Boone County. Frank here, is he technically also just Dr. Beanies from another timeline? Is this his corpse? But eventually his elements are withered down into Frank. Is it from another timeline? Is it a clone of his? Frank is obviously the alien parasite, the bean on his head. But is that just repeatedly, endlessly, moving from Dr. Beanie's corpse to another Dr. Beanie's corpse? Of course, Organ Grinder as well, the dead guy, is implied to be related to Dr. Beanie's as well, using stuff like saying the name Stacy, that's familiar to him. There's other. He repeats Dr. Beanie's dialogue, so I think Organ Grinder is also a corpse of Dr. Beanie's. And this also makes you think. One question I did ask Edmund, that some people did speculate on. I tried to ask him for a question and answer on this on Twitter. He never replied. But is Dr. Cool from Spewer, the scientist guy, also Dr. Beanie's in some sense, or are they the same character? But in the original Mewgenics 2013 blog or something, he said that Dr. Beanie's was inspired by the doctor from Spewer, not necessarily the same character. So, but again, it's all. This is part of the point I'm trying to make, that these things are just themes and symbols that repeat through Edmund's work. They're not necessarily the same, but they are linked. So even though Spewer does show up in the lab, I don't necessarily think that Dr. Cool from Spewer is the same character as Dr. Beanie's in Mewgenics. They're just reflections of another idea. It's just these themes and motifs popping again and again and coming up. And Spewer might just be a reference to Edmund's old games. Edmund did that in Binding Isaac. He's done it in a number of games. And is Nye, kind of just repeating his old work. It's not necessarily that they're connected literally, but they're connected metaphorically. They're still part of his creative universe, so he's going to use them. So I don't necessarily. So I've kind of answered my own question on that. Is Dr. Beanie's Dr. Cool? But in a sense, yes. But in a sense, not yes. But back to the actual conversation here. So if everything is Dr. Beanie's clone, does that also mean Tink and Butch? Tink and Butch are probably Dr. Beanie's clones, or younger versions of him. Maybe, I don't know. I'm just speculating. They are clones. They are babies prepared and separated by Dr. Beanie's. So are they also Dr. Beanie's in some sense? Are they derived from him? Is Baby Jack also Dr. Beanie's? Because he has. Notice that all three of them have the same colored hair. And if Butch and Tink are also like Dr. Beanie's, is Baby Jack another Beanie's clone? And notice that they're kind of style with the short hair, the brown hair, and the mustache. In an interview, Edmund was talking about, somebody is Isaac's dad in Boone County. Somebody, it could be the radio DJ, could be Butch, could be Tink. Here's my theory. They're all technically Isaac's dad, right? Because Isaac's dad could also be a clone of Dr. Beanie's because he's from Boone County, right? And, these characters are all kind of Dr. Beanie's. So, in essence, they're all Isaac's dad, but they're also not all Isaac's dad, right? So that's just a way to view it. And, of course, I have this little dialogue from Time Cuck at the end here. It's quite a wild ride, my friend, but worth the time spent. And I wouldn't lie to a fellow me now, would I? So I'm just kind of touching on these general ideas. But, of course, this is just a theory. A game theory, but, I'm just thinking. I'm just spitballing. I'm thinking about these things. I'm thinking about how they connect, and trying to have a conversation about it. Because I think this is interesting. Of course, at the end of the game, Steven shows up, and I guess this also kind of comes back to the image. It's if everyone is Dr. Beanie's and everyone is repeating on themselves here, is Steven in essence a metaphorical character that represents this represents coping and represents a cyclical coping and repetition of oneself. He is Time Cook in a post on Twitter by Edmund, he goes over the timeline of his games, and Time Cook occurs at all times simultaneously throughout the entire timeline. So maybe Steven isn't a character, but he's more like a force of nature. He's represents like entropy and like everything decays in this endless cycle of like homogeneity. Like everything is Steven. Like Steven is himself down to molecular level, down to macro level. It's all Steven, and so maybe everything like decays to Steven in the end. So, and there is a special connection between Isaac and Steven, right? This is mentioned in the Basement Collection that Isaac and Steven and Time Cook and those games are connected in some sense. And Isaac, of course, is kind of like a repeated telling of Time Cook. It's essentially the same story of a boy who is coping with a harsh reality, and he makes the final decision to get in the box. And the box, of course, in Mewgenics is an item featured. It kind of hammers you on the head here with symbolism that the final unlocks of the game are just like the box. You get the Isaac's box, you get a cardboard box, which is probably Bumbo's box, or the box that Steven describes in the end of Time Cook, where he's drawing on the box, which is like also Bumbo, but like you have the Mewgenics box. When you go on an adventure, you go in a box, the adventure box, and that kind of symbolism as well. The box being this representation, this prism of coping and repetition and recursion, and that is what Steven is. So that kind of symbolism is also hammered on your head there with the game. So this is just my postulation here about what Mewgenics is about. It's yet another retelling of the themes of Edmund's games, of coping, of Dr. Beanie's copes with the loss of Stacy, makes endless Stacy's, endless repetition, endless coping, and he gets stuck in like a time loop maybe, and he's always met with Steven, like the personification of entropy and decay and decrepitness. And perhaps there's also this kind of aspect of like nature versus technology as well, like with like the perfection, the biodiversity of nature versus the homogeneity, the sameness, the coping. I'm just throwing out words here, but like all these themes, like you have like the perfection of nature, the cats are the animals that are honest, and humans they're cruel. They want everything to be the same because they cannot get past tragedy. They cannot get past trauma. They are animals, but they are animals with consciousness. And this consciousness, this is something that Evan spoke about in several interviews, like about what the core of Mewgenics is, that animals are more honest than people, and people are stuck in their own prisons of their own making. They are doomed. They doom themselves to endless coping and endless containing themselves in boxes and prisons. And it's so much to think about. This is something that I really think more people should talk about. It's just like the overarching themes of Edmund's games and the symbolism and everything. And this is something that I'm very passionate about, as you can tell. Hopefully I'm trying to at least explain a little bit of what's going on, because there's all this over. There's beautiful sights for those with eyes to see. So I'll talk more about these bullet points on these slides here. Song lore as well. Like you have the radio DJ. He talks about an ex named Gloria, and also you have that name repeated again in "Dig Your Own Grave," the final song of the game. And some people speculate, like, who is Gloria? Like, is it like what I think is like the songs in the game are like by the radio DJ, or like by the artists of Boone County, whoever they are, and they're just played over the boss fights. So like when the radio DJ in "Dig Your Own Grave" is talking about Gloria, he's talking about just his ex, and you're just hearing that song, you're hearing that expression. Like maybe it's also relevant to the events in the game. Of course, with "Dig Your Own Grave," I believe there's allusions to like Maggie and like like I saw someone say this like what's it, like into the lake of fire while your bones start to crack, and like riddled with disease, begging for forgiveness, riddled with disease. Like that, those kind of map to the various incarnations of Mom as fought in the Binding Isaac. Like you have It Lives, Mother, the Beast, which are all Mom. It's all Mom. Like endless repetition, by the way, endless repeating again. Here it is again, and oh my god, it's overwhelming. It's overwhelming. I really wish I could collect my thoughts and present like a coherent thesis about this, but like I just hope I give people food for thought about like what's actually going on in these games. And of course, one little note here at the very end: Tommy Rufinis is the Throbbing King. So basically, the Throbbing King is is a giant self-made man of meat, of flesh, of taking things from other people, and he lives in a meat realm with flesh lads, and Dr. Beanies describes him as a super meatball. So, and Edmund writes from personal experience, obviously. These are things that are important to him. Time Cut goes about him going to a high school reunion and seeing all these people coping cyclically about their lives. Isaac was inspired by his childhood. Eugenics was inspired by, his time with his wife getting weird designer cats, right? And all these things are inspired by. Also, Time Tuck was inspired by his grandmother died around that time of his development, and these are people important to him. So everything is written from Emin's perspective, of course, as a good writer should. It all comes from him as a person. This is why, if you're talking about Emin's works, you also need to talk about who he is as an artist, right? Where do these things come from? If you want deeper meaning, you have to you have to be a bit of a stalker, right? I've looked at these things, all right, because I want to know. I just want to know what's going on in these damn games. And so Tommy Finn as Throbbing King. Tommy Finn, as you don't know, was his co-worker, his co-creator of Super Meat Boy. Of course, he didn't make Meat Boy. He designed the character. He designed the original Flash game with John McEntee. And then, only then, he got Tommy Finn, who previously programmed with him on Gray Matter, to work on Super Meat Boy. And, eventually, come 2017, there's a split. Tommy Fennis wants to make more Meat Boy Forever, and as you can see with the release of Super Meat Boy Forever, Dr. Fetus's Mean Meat Machine, or whatever it is, and Super Meat Boy 3D, he's kind of just endlessly, beating the Meat Boy horse. And Throbbing King is kind of his fuck you to Tommy. He's like, oh, you are like a petulant child who repeatedly beats the dead horse of meat and constantly absorbs and takes and never actually making anything of your own. That's what the song of Throbbing King also talks about. You're king. You're authoritative. You're spoiled. You're silver spoon. I believe Tommy Friends is from a spoiled. Again, this is not slander. I'm just saying these are things that Edmund might perceive in his games. This is how he might be coping with losing Meat Boy. If you go on his Twitter, you'll see his Meat Boy posts. He says he legally cannot talk about it. It's a very sour spot for him. Meat Boy is very important to him, and I agree. Meat Boy is Edmund's game. It's Edmund's game. So, Throbbing King is kind of just might be a little cheeky insult towards someone who crossed him before and wasn't and abused generosity and took something that wasn't his, just like the Throbbing King. But that's my whole spiel about the lore. I mean, the plot. I mean, I could make a more dedicated video about this, but there's a lot to it. There's a lot to think about, a lot to chew on, and I hope at least you are enlightened by this. Okay, we can also talk about the actual writing of the game itself. Mewgenics has been one of the games that Evan is really flexing his writing muscles again, because he hasn't really written a lot of stuff since his comics in the 2000s, and Isaac, of course, has a story. It was more of a visual storytelling. Isaac and Super Meat Boy were very reliant on an old silent cartoon kind of humor, and kind of using the visuals to tell a story. But Mewgenics is a much more writing based game. It's relying more on its wits and in the written word, and I think it's certainly Edmund. It's certainly Edmund, all right. I can definitely tell you about that. I mean, a lot of the humor is juvenile, but there's some good stuff in there. I particularly enjoyed the characters of Tracy and Tink here. Here's some of my favorite lines from the game. 1 star, creators of pedo would not recommend. Inbreeding may sound cool, but it's not. That morbidly obese one, the vor fetish you murdered last one? That one. And Tracy's a more relatable character, I would say. I'd say she's probably probably the best written character in the game, because she's more relatable. I'm sure people my age, my generation, the Zoomer generation, the Alpha generation, they're stuck in dead end jobs. They have a social conscience that they can't really express, and they're kind of stuck, and they can't. They see all this abuse and tragedy happening around them, but they're kind of powerless to fix it. And Tracy, is something like that character. I'm sure Tracy was also inspired by PETA. Her name is literally just Tracy Newkirk, which are the combinations of PETA's president and founder as well. So PETA, her being related to PETA. Obviously, Edmund's had some run-ins with PETA before, with Super Meat Boy. They're making Super Tofu Boy, and Tofu Boy playing a character in this game. He has a habit for being provocative, and this is also around 2013 as well. I think Gamergate was happening around that time. So these kind of, I don't want to say anything. I'm just saying these kind of, these social justice warriors, as they ever were called. Again, I'm not saying that Edmund is some alt-right bigot chud. He's a guy from California in the 90s. He's a kind of more classical liberal, if I'd imagine. But he still sees these people. He sees their contradictions. And Tracy's kind of a commentary on that. Tracy's kind of a commentary on these people and their, being so outwardly, performative with their their desire for social change that kind of takes away from them as people, or whatever. I don't know. You could look into a lot of things with that, but that's kind of how I see Tracy. And Tink, I would say some people are kind of missing the point with Tink. I'm not to say that all. Everyone can look into whatever they can with Tink, but I think that the joke with Tink, he's a joke. He's a joke character. Is that his wife that he talks about is not actually real. If you look this up, look up beard on Wikipedia. A beard is someone for a gay man. it's a partner they talk about to hide their homosexuality, their gayness. And if Tink had a wife, you'd probably see pictures of her, you'd probably see something on his wall, but it's not there. Again, I think that's a joke with where Edmund's going with the character, is that he's a gay man who is talking exuberantly about his wife. So you don't think he's gay? He's not gay. He's not a gay man. Because that's Edmund's humor. That's what he finds funny. I think that's kind of the point with Tink's character. He's a very flamboyant, typical gay stereotype. But it's not to say that it's bad. It's just a unique character in the world of Edmund McMillan and Boone County. So that's how I would look at it. But the writing, a lot of good stuff. Generally, it's some hit or miss stuff. It's more juvenile. Not everything's gonna hit. You're gonna hear poop jokes, of course, and pee and crap like that. It's Edmund. It's he's an overgrown man-child, and aren't we all man-children inside? Well, I guess some are women as well, women children. We all have our inner child. So, and I also really like the cat and the boss quips and the intro sequences of the classes. Each class having their own kind of quips and whatnot. I know the Butcher has like a Meat Boy reference in that, and just to hammer in the point about Edmund being salty about Meat Boy. But the bosses, it gives a lot of flavor to the world, even though it doesn't seem kind of plausible that all cats are speaking, but it's interesting. It's Edmund, it's distinct, it's interesting. There's stuff to look into it and to learn. And of course, you have the cutscenes as well, beautifully animated. It's like a whole Flash cartoon. I know you have the intro sequence, which is just like a total riff on The Simpsons, and you have all the different Stacy's like couch gags and whatnot. I love that, and it's just totally riffing on that. And the animations themselves are all well done by his crew of animators, of course. And it's like his old cutscenes and Isaac and Super Meat Boy, but actually done professionally. Like, I'm not to say his work is bad. Maybe it is to him, but I liked it. But it's something different in Mewgenics, and I still enjoy it all the same. And of course, you have his humor and whatnot. You have Hitler getting pissed on at the end. This the kind of hammer in his whole thing with Hitler, and of course, Pyrophene and Zaratana, they get stuck in the rift in the cutscenes. I want them free. I want my children, my girls. I want them home. I want them safe. I don't want them stuck in chaos hell. All right. Well, I feel like I've gone zealously over my general thoughts of the game. So I will say there's a lot to Mewgenics. There's a lot to Mewgenics to love, and I've certainly expressed a lot of that. And I hope I've also kind of contrasted with the negative stuff, but there's a lot of Mewgenics to love, and some people do love the game. Some people totally love the game. They think it's way better than Isaac, and it's like, I personally, as a weird, creature, I've stuck in my ways. I still kind of like Isaac more, even though it's more haphazard in its design, even though it's built off a Flash prototype that that is showing its age. Well, I mean, of course, they made the game, but still it has the same kind of design as Flash Isaac in terms of being kind of amateurish and kind of all over the place. It's kind of building on something over and over again. But I mean, some people think that Mewgenics is way better. They can tolerate the house gameplay, they can tolerate the events, they can tolerate these things, and they still have fun anyways. And you know what? More power to them. And I like Mewgenics. I think it's a game that's still like much of Edmund's work is still outstanding. Most games in the industry do not compare in terms of intrigue, of design, and art and cohesiveness and eccentricity. It's still my game of the year, because all I really care about is Edmund McMillan games, right? Because those are the games that really catch my eye nowadays. I mean, because they're interesting. I mean, whatever. I've certainly explained how I feel about his work, right? So Mewgenics, of course, it is the big roguelite. If Isaac was the little demo he spent 10 years on, fiddling around with, then Mewgenics is his magnum opus. It's this big roguelite. Back in 2013, with 2012, he talked with Time and Friends, after Isaac, we want Team Meat to make a big roguelite game. And eventually, Mewgenics, since the split, became that big roguelite game. And this is the game that Edmund has wanted to make for a bajillion years. And I should say, this image on the right here, this Badlands image, this comes from a old tweet by Edmund, and it looks a little familiar, right? You have units on a grid. It's a strategy game. They have different attacks and abilities, and it's all inspired by Magic the Gathering. This image is dated 2003, 2004. So this game has been stewing in Edmund's head for a very long time. I know he experimented with Mewgenics and different gameplay styles, but these were probably games he wanted to apply Mewgenics to, and he eventually settled on this old strategy game from 2003, 2004. Isn't that crazy? So Mewgenics was in development for just 6 years, from the end of it started full development after Isaac Repentance came out, but it was prototyping since 2019. So not only has it been developed for 6 years, not only has it been in development for more than a decade, since 2012, 2013, when the original prototype was being made, but perhaps you could also argue it's been in development since 2003, 2004, but this idea is still in Evan's head. I mean, this is a little fun factoid for you. Oh. All right, I hope that was enough for you about my whole spiel of this game. It's just like, there's a lot to talk about. I could still talk about more things, much more things, and I hope I at least got the general gist of the game, some of its nuances, some of the things I didn't, there's some things that might not be immediately apparent. But of course, this video, as long as it's been now, is a two-parter. We got to talk about DLC. There's going to be DLC in the game. There's one small one and one big one. So here are two lovely lads going to prepare to make their DLC. So they've talked about two DLCs to the game. A small DLC, which I imagine is going to be like an Afterbirth equivalent for Isaac, or for Mewgenics, right? For Afterbirth was its kind of supplementary DLC that added some nice stuff to the base Isaac Rebirth experience. I think it later had Repentance, which was this big transformative thing. I know it's borrowed from the Anti-Birth mod for Isaac, but this is going to be the Repentance equivalent to Mewgenics Isaac. It's going to have an Act 4, even more unlocks, and the small DLC is confirmed to have 4 new classes, 2 by Ed, 2 by Tyler. So, and of course, what else could be in this DLC? I'm sure quality of life, other stuff, etc. I'll talk more about that. Mini games, new NPCs, etc., etc. They're gonna be big deals. I wanted to make this video. I didn't want to just rag on Mewgenics. I also wanted to kind of explain, hey, here's my ideas for the DLC. Here's what might happen. I'm an astute scholar of Edmund, so why not figure something out, right? Now, maybe I can read his mind a little bit, huh? And one thing he did say about the DLC is that'd be one big poop joke, and I think I might know what that poop joke might be. So, if you're designing a class for Mewgenics or making new areas, right, you have to look at what's already there, right? It should be distinct. There shouldn't have overlap between the other classes in the game, right? It should be something new, something different, something that has its own niche that isn't, isn't the same like the other classes. One important thing to mention is that people have been suggesting stuff like a bard or a pirate class for druid, or sorry, a bard or a pirate class, but those things became druid because druid has the bird, druid has the musical things. They didn't have enough, archetypes, or sorry, they didn't have enough like design space to have like both a bard and a druid, so they just kind of merged them together, right? So you have to think when designing a class, it should not have any overlap between any pre-existing classes, right? It should be its own thing. I've heard some other stuff, but and of course the inspirations for the Mewgenics classes was Dungeons and Dragons, Magic the Gathering, maybe Final Fantasy Tactics, because that was the inspiration for Mewgenics. So that kind of fantasy aspect of the game is like being applied to a contemporary point in time. So you have Dungeons and Dragons, Magic the Gathering, Final Fantasy Tactics. These are the things. Well, and less so Final Fantasy Tactics, because that was just a strategy game that Evan played to inspire Mewgenics. But still, there might be ideas from that kind of ruminating in his mind. So I'm just gonna try guessing what he might like, or if it's not a prediction, then it's a cool idea, right? Maybe if some cool mod guy wants to add these classes in the game, sure, why not? But I'm sure at least one of them is probably confirmed. And of course, when you're making these classes, you gotta think like you're Edmund. What is he like? Of course, he likes Dungeons and Dragons, Magic the Gathering, but what are his tastes? What are the things he might want to explore? What are his his eccentricities, his weirdness, his strangeness? So, and he has said on Twitter that 3 of these classes are already been predicted by the community. So there probably shouldn't be too out there ideas. They're probably concepts that have already been touched upon. Immediately come to mind. And one mystery one, which I will guess here, because I feel like you could come up with it, but like Evan's gonna be like, oh, you haven't figured it out, really. He's kind of being a little tricky and trollish. So I'd like to go over these classes here. So number 1, here's the classes. Gunslinger. Gunslinger has pretty much been soft confirmed already. I mean, I think there's leftover content in the game that kind of suggests a Gunslinger class. You also have Zodiac, who was a mini boss at one point, perhaps for a Gunslinger class. I don't know, but maybe the class color bosses came later. But it's possible. That's still kind of an idea that seems like it should be explored. Like, Edmund wants more range classes in the game, because you have like a hunter and necromancer and thief. He wants more on top of that. And a gunslinger, if you have a guy wielding a bow, what's the second idea that's going to come to mind? It's a guy shooting a gun. So I mean, this is pretty much confirmed 100%. So this is in a Dan Allen interview with Edmund. He's like, Dan Allen's an Australian content creator. He's like, you're like a Ned Kelly outlaw shooter kind of guy, and I didn't even know who Ned Kelly was, but Ned Kelly's like an Australian kind of standout individual who committed crimes with guns, of course. And then in response says, I'm not going to say anything about that. He's kind of smiling. He's kind of got that vibe to him. So I think that's pretty much soft confirmed. It's going to happen in the game. And of course, Gunslinger, what's it going to have? It's going to have a gun, perhaps like a pocket item like what's it like the monk has like the fist from that, like kind of like the tainted characters in Isaac with their pocket items. It's gonna have like a in the trinket slot or whatever. It's gonna have like a gun, of course. It's gonna have like a revolver, 6-shooter, kind of like Zodiac. It's gonna have ammo mechanics. It's gonna have like quick shots or whatever, long range sniping. It's gonna be like that for Gunslinger. And Edmund is probably gonna take the reins on this class. It's a pretty straightforward one. He kind of likes that vibe, I guess. I don't know. Maybe it's. Well, with the design, it's like Edmund and Tyler pick one class, and then like the other one kind of supplements it. So I'm just kind of speculating on that, who's leading one. Of course, here's my design for the Gunslinger class collar. It's kind of like the barrel of I guess the cylinder of a revolver, and of course that's kind of the shape, and the icon in the middle is like a sheriff star. Like it might look like that, and the kind of the copper star as well. That's why it's like a copper, and it's like an orange copper. So that could probably be distinguished from the rest of the class collars. Oh, class collar collars. Say that 3 times fast. And then here's my little description I came up with, just like the classes in the game. So that's one potential idea. You got Gunslinger. My second idea is the Alchemist class. So Dungeons and Dragons has like an artificer class, which is like Tinker, but also has like elements like potion brewing, potion making. And I feel like this is something that seems to come to mind when you think of fantasy. It's like, oh, it's like a guy making potions, doing arcane kind of crap and more material science, I guess. And this is like another ranged class. It's chucking potions, brewing them. I'm reminded of like Plague Knight from Shovel Knight, if you ever played that game. That kind of like throwing potions at things, or like that one enemy in the Solar Eclipse event of Terraria. The Dr. Fly. Throwing potions like I'm like a mad scientist, right? And these potions can these concoctions can have various effects. So you can brew potions that have like a buffing effect or a debuffing effect. I imagine it's more like a debuff kind of class, because that kind of archetype isn't really present in the game. And just to distinguish it, I don't know, the basic attack is probably like a simple chuck a potion, but it has like a 2x2 splash damage area. Like it said, because you have Druid, already is kind of like a splash class technically, but this one could be like a 2x2 square or something. I don't know, kind of centered on the top left or whatever. I don't know. It's just a possibility. Of course, if you have spells that could increase the size of that area, does different effects, etc. There's a lot of design space that you could do this, and because it's kind of sciencey nature, I think Tyler would probably handle this one. And on the bottom right here is a similar kind of concept I saw on Reddit. I'll probably put in the description of this video about I'm not saying that these are totally my original ideas. I'm just saying this is what I think was likely, and I'll put my own little spin on it. I can't really design a bunch of skills and whatnot, because I think that's better left to the actual developers. But there's another guy on Reddit who did a great concept like that, which the color is a little different. I think the green would be a little more desaturated here. Of course, you have the actual collar itself, which is like a desaturated green. Like a potion in the middle, which is like a typical, I don't know, what's an Erlenmeyer flask, and then you have the typical kind of like the triangular one at the bottom here, that has the shape here of the collar. So I think that's pretty creative, right? All right, so yeah, that guy on Reddit did a pretty good job. He also has a bunch of abilities as well. I don't want to think about that too hard, because I just wanted to see what the ideas are, right? And next class, this one is probably I don't think is the most likely, but I think it's a pretty neat idea. I call it the Beastmaster. And the Beastmaster, if you've ever played a Final Fantasy game, Blue Mages. Blue Mages copy enemy abilities and kind of control them. And I think that's kind of what this class would be. It'd be like a Blue Mage. You can copy enemy abilities, or you can control enemies directly. Now, I know it might have some overlap between Psychic and Druid, kind of interfacing with familiars, but I feel like there's a lot of design space where you can make your own thing with that. Kind of taking enemy abilities and controlling them directly, and maybe it could be kind of like Dybbuk possessing an enemy, right? Because it has a stop hitting yourself thing on a solo cat run. I mean, you can have enemies attack themselves or something. You can whip an enemy and you're controlling them directly, and it's not charmed. They're like a new unit now for one turn, and in a turn you can have them hit themselves. You can hit another enemy. So it's kind of like manipulating enemies to do what you want, and also taking their abilities as well. That's what the Beastmaster is. And the class collar here is a whip with a spade icon. If you know, it's got a bit of a GIMP, BDSM, dominatrix, fetishy flavor with it, because Edmund loves that kind of thing as well. You're whipping your cats, and it's like an erotic thing as well, because it's kind of a joke with that. Dominate the battlefield with the crack of a whip. And also one other idea is it could be like a dancer from Fire Emblem, where dancers in Fire Emblem, they go up to a unit and they give it another turn. I know that's something that Psychic also has as a skill ability, but this is something based in the class as well. So you can whip a cat. It's get to work. It's kind of an edgy slave master flavor as well, and you can make them have another turn or whatever. So I think that's something interesting. Of course, the basic attack would be like a whip attack, which is like kind of like extended and melee attack. So like it's like a straight line. So like it goes like 1, 2, 3 tiles further ahead, but it's probably like weaker than like a fighter or butcher, but like has some damage and like it's probably like 1 or 2 damage base. I don't know how it's gonna scale, but like just enough to like control enemy and not do too much damage and whatnot, or like just kind of tickle your cats a bit. And the archetypes could probably play on that, like controlling enemies, the alpha, of course, kind of weird sexual dynamics, supporting teammates, etc., etc. I think you could definitely carve out something that's different from druid or psychic with that. And because this class is also very unique, and you have all these enemies' abilities and potentially copying them as well. Tyler would lead it because it's very programmatically intense, right? And he's the programmer type. But of course, Emmon is it's funny gimp thing as well. So I mean, I think it's a pretty funny class. I mean, in the game, I think you definitely do something with this. But the color as well is like a dark blue. There's not really like a dark blue in the game. Like there's the mage class which is blue, but I can also see the collar being like a pink instead. And I think I've heard some mumbling about there being a potential pink class in the future, but it could be this one because it could be like a pink is love, heart. I mean, well, you also have the cleric as well, which is like that, but it's a white color. And also, I also chose the shape of the spade here because it completes the card suits because you have the cleric is the hearts, and you have diamonds is hunter. Jester is kind of like Clover. I mean, it's not really, but like it's kind of like that. It's kind of shaped like that, and his luck random class as well. And then you also have the spade class as well, which is like look up spade tattoo. You'll understand why I chose this. I was originally thinking like a beast fang as well. It's kind of like an arrow shape. Maybe it's like get down or something. I think that's also possible. Well, just speculating. I just chose the spade one because it's funny. And of course, my last class here, this is the supposed mystery class that Emin's talking about. No one's predicted. No one knows what this class will be. And so I'm thinking what Emin is saying that is like, this is going to be the class that I really like. This is going to be some weird shit that I would only do. So my speculation on that is the hobo class, the Edmund class trademark. And it's the big poop joke as well, because as you can see, the hobo has the kind of the 3-layer turd here as its class collar and the trash can icon. And it's kind of like a random bullshit funny. It's kind of like the trampy. If Gunslinger is the class that Zodiac uses, then Trampy would have its own hobo class as well, right? So, and hobos are a big thing in Emin's games. Like Bumbo was originally conceived as a game about hobos. You have the game Twin Hobo Rocket, the Beggars and Isaac, of course, and the Mewgenics, of course. I guess Frank is technically a hobo. It's something that Evan is very fascinated by. Neurodivergent, cast out individuals from society, and so like a hobo class is also something that I think is possible, right? And it's obviously Evan's class, and how it plays. Like I have a lot of archetypes around like disorders, parasites, mutations, pills and consumables, etc. It's kind of like this kind of shoving these unique aspects from eugenics and making it its own kind of class and playing with that. So you have things like that, and bottom right here is another one by that same Redditor who made that Alchemist concept. He also made a Vagabond concept. I think Evan would just say hobo because it seems more like Edmund's vernacular. This one's quite a bit more complex for the hobo class, but I could definitely see something like this as well. They came up with a bunch of good skills and abilities. I definitely recommend looking at that concept here, but I think it would just probably be called a hobo class here. I guess the icon here is like supposed to be like a trash bag with poop, but I kind of did the poop as the color shape. So, and then the dull kind of brownish color, of course, like poop or vomit, because that's what Emin likes. That's the things that Emin likes in this game. So I like to talk specifically about why I chose these classes. Again, I said that they have to be kind of like grounded in that fantasy, right? Like it has to be like Dungeons and Dragons, Magic the Gathering. It can't be something like a narrowly like it can't be like a contemporary or like specific profession. Like I've seen some other ideas on like Reddit or like elsewhere that like you have like an entertainer or a prospector or a princess class. I don't think those are classes that like Edmund would necessarily do. They seem like too narrowly focused, and some already have overlap already. I've already talked about Bard Pirate becoming Druid. You have the Warlock thing from Dungeons and Dragons. I mean, I don't really know what Warlocks do too much in Dungeons and Dragons, but like they're kind of magic-y. I feel like there's a lot of overlap between like Mage or Druid with Warlocks. I don't think Warlock would necessarily be happening because you can't really carve that into something unique. And there's some other people it's just something like a gambler, and like a gambler is already kind of represented by like a jester and thief, because the jester is already the luck-based random class, and thief already has like a gambling abilities already interface with luck. I don't think it's something that necessarily would already exist. I mean, it's something that already exists as classes. So again, you have to have no overlap between classes. They have to have each their own distinct role. And if you look at a class and you think like, you have to think like what they do. Like this is my last point here. Like, a fighter probably like hits people directly. A hunter is long range. Thief is sneaky. Druid is psychic. These are magical things. Magical things are happening. And a lot of these other classes I'm seeing, it's like you don't really intuit what they immediately do, right? Like some of these classes here, like I don't know what those are going to do, like what their basic attack is. Like it should be something grounded in fantasy, something easily understood. So I think that's kind of the design concept behind a lot of things in eugenics. So this is why I chose those classes. But those are my ideas. I hope those are good, promising ideas. You'll see. And of course, I said the second thing as well is chapters. So the actual areas you're going to. This is going to be something in the second DLC. Maybe the first DLC. Maybe the first DLC could have some areas, some added areas. I was thinking about this, but I thought about what kind of areas that Edmund would like to represent in his games. Like, he's a little bit self-referential. He has stuff that apes stuff he did. Like the end is pretty much end is nigh. I guess Das Future is like, his Hitler's Must Die, there's kind of flavors of his old work in these specific areas and the kind of motifs and areas he likes. So if you're looking at what kinds of areas could be added to Mewgenics, I would definitely say look at stuff he's done before. I mean, not to say that, like, oh, everything he's already done before. Like, a lot of things in Mewgenics I didn't necessarily predict, like Crater, for example, is like Little Shop of Horrors. I mean, he does like that, but I guess you could look more closely at like that kind of media he likes, and Core, of course, is like another take on the hell, whatnot. Bunker, cults, whatnot. These are already pretty defined, like kind of trends and motifs that Edmund likes in his games. So I came up with a few, and let's see maybe how you feel about them. So number one, actually, to explain first, some people think that Act 4 would be like Binding of Isaac, because on the map screen, like you have the three acts that go left, right, and up from the house. Like you go down, and that would be like the Binding of Isaac. Oh, you do Binding of Isaac again. Like you have basement and then a womb or caves. Well, you already have caves in the game. That's part of the reason why I don't think this is going to happen, right? Because it's a lot of overlap with what's in the game already. You have the thriving domains like the womb. You have core, which is like a shoal, or the hell from the beasts and whatnot. Caves, of course, is like reps, catacombs, caves, all that stuff. All that sort of stuff I feel like is already kind of done in the game to a pretty satisfying extent. And there's cut expansions for the house in the game that Frank would give you. More basements, which would be loosely themed based on the Isaac floors as well. And one more thing is that like it kind of undermines, the actual game, the actual themes and motifs of the base Isaac, because Isaac's world is imaginary. There's no basement underneath his house. There's none of that there. But Mewgenics, I mean, you already have these cut house expansions, which would probably be added, right? Would probably cut for time or whatever. And those already rep Isaac, and it's like those are things being added after he has died. So, and they're only kind of loosely themed, if I recall correctly, in the cut content. So, they're not going to be like whole areas with enemies and whatnot. There's going to be it's just going to be cute little references to Isaac, basically. So I think that's going to be what those are. So basically, I don't think it's going to be a Binding of Isaac, but it could be possible. Edmund could do that. Edmund could do that instead. And I'm not discounting it entirely, but I'm just saying it's probably less likely. You probably want to explore more unique locations and more areas that are not just it's Isaac again. He wants to do something new. That's what he did with Mewgenics. I mean, yes, it's inspired from his past games, but it's still pushing forward into a new direction. But I like to talk about my first area here, which is something that Edmund has interest in. It's called the Boardwalk, and this is based on the Santa Cruz Beach Boardwalk. This is something that's been quite important to Edmund. He lives right on this coastal town in Santa Cruz, which is Santa Cruz, and it's kind of like a getaway resort area. There's some videos on his old YouTube where he's going to the boardwalk with Danielle, and I'm thinking like, wow, that would be a pretty good idea for like a level. It's like some people have requested like a beach level, but we can also combine it with like a carnival theme, right? Like a fun fair carnival theme arcade. And then you have both those concepts in the same level, right? And this could be like your Act 1 or Act 4 opener, right? It's kind of like a pedestrian area. It's unique. And, of course, your enemies here could be hobos, for example. I don't know, kind of vagrants, hobos. It could be clowns, fortune tellers, that kind of esoteric stuff that Evan also likes as well. You kind of have that, those are from like the human funfair area. And then you also have the natural area, which could be like, you have like crabs, you have like, I don't know, washed up jellyfish or whatever. Those could be your enemies on like the beach, and maybe like some combat encounters would be like on the beach, and some would be right on the boardwalk. And I'm thinking like what would be cool if it's like you have like a sunset shader on your cats that like makes it like all like tinted purple or like orange or whatever, and it looks cool. It's just ideas, of course. I don't know how crazy you can get with it. Like bosses, like I don't know, maybe like rogue amusement park rides. I don't know. You could definitely do something with this. You could definitely do something. It's like junk food. Boardwalks are known for their junk food. You have like living food enemies or something. I don't know. And of course, I'm thinking like the song's gotta be like totally surf rock. I know surf rock is already represented in Mewgenics with like the junkyard theme, Down with the Devil, but like this is like a total Beach Boys pastiche. It's like you know how they sound like. Let's go Google it, right? And I'm also thinking like, how is this area gonna sound? How's it gonna look? I mean, if I wasn't so lazy, I'd probably draw out how it would look with enemies and design. But I want to see what Emin does. I'm just kind of predicting what he might do, where he might lean. I think this would be a very cute area, and this could be like your Act 4 opener. And how it also contrasts is it's like versus like nature versus technology, right? So you have like the man-made part, which is like your arcades, your boardwalk, of course, and you have the actual nature side, which is the beach, beach area, the beach enemies. So this could be like kind of like the theme of the act is like nature versus technology, which is also something that kind of overlaps in Edmund's games as well, and it's also kind of like a motif, which I talked about before. So you have those two sides. So that kind of branches. That's what separates the branches here. It's nature versus technology. So this leads to the second area, which is taking off this nature theme. I call it the abyss. Ooh, it's an underwater aquatic area. So your cats play on the beach of the boardwalk. They go under the water and they enter the abyss. And the abyss is filled with all sorts of aquatic wildlife, whales, giant squid, fish. And you could even take a little bit of a Lovecraftian influence on it. Maybe one of the bosses is Cthulhu or something. Or Cthulhu could be like a house boss or whatever. I'm not sure if he's big on the big HP, but he does like the Necronomicon from the Evil Dead, which is something from Lovecraft. So he could definitely take some inspiration. I don't know. I'm just trying to suggest something here, which he might do. And of course, you have songs like moody, aquatic, based on Melvins, which is one of Edmund's favorite bands, which is also the inspiration for Throbbing Domains song, the Melvins. That's kind of their vibe. So it can also have something kind of moody, aquatic like that. I don't really know specifically how it might sound like. That's up to Matthias and John to figure out. But I feel like something like this would be good. And of course, the gimmick of this area is that they're underwater. Cats can't breathe underwater. How do they breathe on the moon? Don't ask that. Don't ask how they breathe on the moon. But underwater, they have breathing problems. And you need to hit air or bubble tiles first so your cats don't drown. I guess what would be interesting on this level is when enemies die, they just float up, and so there's no corpses, right? That'd be pretty funny. But that's just an idea. Trying to think maybe Club of the Seal can show up because he didn't show up in Ice Age, so maybe Club of the Seal is a boss here. He's underwater. He's gonna hit you with a club. I don't know. It's possible. I feel like that'd be a good area. I feel like it's probably common or some idea of that. It could be just called like the sea, like the ocean or whatever. I think the abyss is pretty fitting. It's a distinct location in the water. And so in the abyss, you enter some deep cave, and some deep underwater cave, and it opens up to this third area, the tar pits, which is obviously a reference to Gish as well. But I feel like it also represents the tar aspect, the tar liquid, which isn't really repped too commonly in Mewgenics. So you have pits of tar everywhere. It's kind of dark gray, kind of desaturated, and it's kind of also like the dank depths from Isaac. So it's very gaseous as well. There could be gassy enemies or whatever. I don't know if you want to play with that. And of course, given that it's also inspired by Gish, you'd also have perhaps the man himself in the game, Gish Tarnish, or maybe his desperate lover, Hera, as well, my wife, just to let you know. But, it's just possibility. It's possible. I'm sure you could definitely do something with this. I really like the aspect of the aesthetic of Gish with the black and the yellow eyes. I don't know. It's just a personal thing. I don't know. Maybe it's a bit too self-referential, but I feel like you could kind of distinguish it from Gish and also from the Jurassic as well. Give it its own identity here as part of Act 4 here. So if the boardwalk, the abyss, the tar pits are the nature side of the Act 4 theme, then we also got to go into the technology. So maybe in the boardwalk, you enter some arcade and you go to some dingy IT support closet and you enter a computer. And what this level is to internets. And this is basically it's like Edmund's interpretation of a cyberspace level, right? And in this level, it's you could take it in multiple directions. It could be something typical Matrix, green and black, zeros and ones, and or maybe just abstract colors, abstract shapes. I don't know, but one thing for sure is like this definitely represents like internet culture, and like you fight internet enemies in this level, like memes, feline related, especially because cats very popular on the internet, as you may know, and I feel like that's something to lean into. Cats being popular here and beloved, and you could have references to the old memes as well, old antiquated memes. I know Edmund's an old guy; he likes rage faces. You have the epic face here as a these are the various transformations that Stacy can have in the intro here. So these are something you can rep here, like Newgrounds, of course. His past on Newgrounds. You can have some kind of things derived from that. Of course, the epic face or the awesome face. I don't know. I call it the epic face because it's called out in Roblox. Nyan Cat, of course, if you can get away with it. I know the creator of Nyan Cat is a little stingy with copyright, but I don't know. You can probably figure out something. Something that's legally distinct, and lots of cat memes, old rage faces, and one thing's for sure: lol cows. Edmund loves his eccentric online personalities. So this can be crazy, but hypothetically, maybe he could have like a Chris Chan boss fight in this world or something. I don't know. Like he certainly loves Chris Chan, so I mean that's a possibility. And different references to online stuff and whatnot. Again, the name is also a reference to the Super Meat Boy custom level area name. I think that custom levels were called internet. So that's something kind of borrowed that old early 2010 culture here. I don't know if maybe it's a bit. You can have contemporary memes as well. You can have 6-7 or whatever, or Loss. I don't know. It's actually Loss is kind of old, but you could definitely take this into an interesting direction. So, and I was joking here. How do you get if you have this tech world, this tech electronic music world? You can get Danny Baranowski as a guest composer. That's not going to happen, of course, but I'm sure Ridiculon could definitely take that into a unique direction. And maybe the song is like Nightcore or something. It's got like a female vocalist or something. It's like anime. Evan doesn't like anime. I should say that. I don't know, but he could definitely come up with something with this name. I don't know. And of course, on the little icon here, the binary. If you didn't know, it translates to a cat. You have a computer mouse here as well. I don't know. It'd probably be more. Probably would be like an actual physical like computer. Probably be like oh, here's what the world is, but just kind of an idea for what the icon of the level might look like. And so you exit the internets, and then you're beamed into the cosmic rays, and your cats are transmitted out into the universe. And what this leads to is the Aether from the Aether game that Edmund likes. Edmund is a very big fan of Aether. If Time Cook is his big central game, like the Aether is his a second game because it's also kind of takes inspiration from the themes of being a kid, being innocent, getting lost and floating in space, which is something that I remember in the movie, he when he was a kid, he drew himself floating in space. So it's something that's important to him. He also has speculated on making a sequel to Aether at some point. So I feel like something like this wouldn't be too far fetched to do. So you're beamed out from the internets into the Aether, into a different dimension of planets with faces. That's something that, and also faces, different faces on planets. You see that in the Man on the Moon, for example. So it's distinct from the moon because you're also traveling through multiple planets. The map would have different planets with different faces on it, and the events here could also just like the game, you're helping the planets and also the people on as well. And so that could be events. You get special events for the Aether, oh, this person needs this or something, and you roll for whatever. So that's something that could happen. And of course, it's got a lot of clouds. And probably maybe the boss fight is against the kid and the monster from Aether. You fight them at the same time. Maybe they separate or something, and there's a lot of swinging involved. I don't know. I don't know. That's up to Ed to determine. So this is kind of a prediction. So, and of course, with the music, gotta have Laura Shigihara as a guest star vocalist. This is something the original Aether had. Laura Shigihara, who if you don't know, did Plants vs Zombies soundtrack, is friends with Edmund, did also the Super Meat Boy 2015 soundtrack, some aspect of the Con Alley tunes, for example. So you could bring her in. She's already worked with Edmund and Ridiculous before. She's the guest vocalist. She's crooning or whatever she does. I mean, the song could also just be her song from the Aether that she composed. Or I wonder what Ridiculon's Aether soundtrack would sound like. But we'll have to see. So this is what I think would be possible. And I do have. There are a couple more ideas here, working through it. So, as you may know, all acts end on one final chapter. And what do we know? What might be a final chapter? What might be an extra boss you might fight? Well, if you remember that Steven said he might show up in the DLC as a boss fight, here's his place. So this is the act end cap. So at the end of the Aether and the tar pits, you see like a black vibrating box, and you have to open it somehow, right? And like once you do, you get sucked into Steven's world, and everything is Steven. Everything is Steven. You know, all the enemies are Steven. They're all named Steven, just like the items that you get in the end game. They're all Steven. Everything is Steven. And it could also take off of Time Cook as well, like having limited like the palette as well. So like you know in Time Cook it has like kind of like a Game Boy style, like two different palettes, like the black and the green. Sometimes different ones like you know black, orange, or whatever. And maybe it's also like that, like the enemies kind of have that as well, or it could just be black and white as well. Like that's kind of how Steven is interpreted nowadays, is that he's just black and white. But it could be like that. It could also be like the future, or sorry, Nevermore from Endless Night could also be like that as well. You know, it's a possibility. And perhaps from Time Cook, the gimmick of this level could be that like different enemies and units are in different stages, and you have to like switch between them somehow. And of course, the song Isolated Showers again. Gotta have a reprise of that. You already have a reprise of it in Steven's NPC theme here. So here's a full remix of it if they can work that out. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think the copyright on that is pretty lax. I mean, they already got the theme for Steven here. I mean, it's not on Ridiculous's Bandcamp for some reason, or the release of the NPC theme soundtrack. So maybe there's who was the composer? I would have to look back into that. I'll put that in the comments. But so yeah, the box. It seems pretty obvious. Or maybe Steven's like a house boss or something, and like the gimmick of Steven could be like that. Maybe the arena shrinks or something. You have like less space, and if like it becomes like a narrower box. Like it's symbolism. Ooh, motifs, and if your cats are outside this shrunken arena, then they get fucked or fucked. And they die instantly or whatever. That could be a good boss fight theme. You know, it might be a bit hard to program, but you know, Tyler's the programming savant. Yeah, I'm sure he can figure it out. And I did have one more idea. I've kind of outlined six areas that are needed for an act, but I do have one more idea that I think could get in, and I'm not sure how it could get in. Maybe, well, we'll see. I'll show you here. The tomb. So it's an underground Egyptian tomb level, of course. You know, inspired by the ancient Egyptian worship of cats. You gotta have that because it's a cat game. They are freaking cats, and the tomb is already showed up as a motif in Gish, so you have the Lost Tombs of Duat. And this is also something that was explored in the Binding of Isaac of Revelations mod, which is one of the only Isaac mods that I actually kind of like. Like I feel like it kind of gets what Edmund's going for at least a little bit. I mean, Anti-Birth did that pretty well. Revelations is probably like the second best one for that. Something like Fiend Folio is probably not, but you know, no diss on them, but you know. That's what I think. This is something that I think Edmund would probably explore. And of course, it's like an underground, subterranean level, bricks and sand, and also traps as well. You know, boulders, darts, pits of sand. You want to avoid those so you don't get your cats. So it's more like like you have to think about these things in different encounters. Like it's not just the enemies. You have to think about the terrain, like the pressure plates. You want to hit those, or maybe you can use them tactically to hit enemies and dispose of them. And so, of course, if the song for this level, it's got to be like walk like an Egyptian. You know, come on, like something like that, or like I don't know, like a typical underground desert take. I don't know. I'm sure you could figure something out to make this its own location. I've kind of. Oh yes, I have more ideas here as well for what other ideas there are. Just so if they get in the DLC, I can say, oh, I'm vindicated. I totally predicted it, even though you know you only have so many tropes and ideas that could get into the game, you know, because it's kind of general with its ideas. So there could be a basement level, of course. I'm not discounting that Isaac is possible. You have a basement location in Bumbo too, right? Because you know, well, I mean that game is more directly related to Isaac, but yeah, it could happen. It could happen here in Vagabond too. Maybe a big city, like you know, the alley is kind of like an urban city area, but you can expand that even more with like a big city area with cars or traffic or roads. And something like that, and maybe like a factory level with conveyor belts. Like we go to like I heard some ideas like this. Like you go to like the P-Mart factory and see all the cats being ground up into meat. Like I don't know that's possible. And medieval castles as well. And you know, maybe there's more time travel as well. You get like an extra area in Act 3 or whatever that adds a different possibility to go to. So you go to like a medieval era. You're in the castle. You fight like knights and whatnot or whatever. And there's also the reactor as well, like a nuclear themed level. I know the bunker's kind of like that, and the lab's kind of like that, so it's a little redundant. But this is just kind of an idea. I've heard some people speculate this because you have these giant cooling towers in the backgrounds of various locations in Mewgenics. This isn't really something you see, but like maybe that could be expanded into a whole area. And again, saying this, so when one of these are in the DLC, I'm like, hey, I was right. You look at me, I'm so cool. All right, so here's a map of how I think this would be laid out here. I kind of explained this earlier. Boardwalk would lead to the abyss, to the tar pits, to the box, and the boardwalk would then lead to internets, the aether, and the box again. So just like a typical act, so you have your other acts up here. And so I was thinking with the tomb, maybe like the acts have their own like secret area. So like you go from the desert, to the tomb and then maybe to the core, so into the bunker or whatever, or maybe like its own third path or whatever. That could also be a possibility. Come to think of it, you could also do that for the other acts as well. Maybe like Act 1 gets like the factory level, and Act 3 gets the medieval level as well, and the other path, which could be another future route. I don't know. Maybe like I don't know. I'm not Edmund. I don't speak to be. I'm not Edmund. Whatever he's doing, you know what? He's probably doing something completely different. And you know what? That's going to be awesome. I'm going to appreciate it. I'm going to overanalyze the shit out of it anyways. So, yeah, this is just kind of how these things would be laid out here. I hope this is a nice, cute little... I like these cute little images I did. You like these cute little images I did? I think they're pretty nice. They're just like the game. Wow. All right. So what other crap could be in the Mewgenics DLC? Of course, you have some content from the game. You have like a minecart game and a fishing game, which is probably something that Tyler coded up, I guess. That could be possible. So, like, I don't know how these would be implemented exactly, but, you know, it's up to them. And, you know, of course, you have the original conception of the 2013 Team-made prototype Mewgenics, which was a collection of minigames. So maybe you could bring those back. The pageants that Tink has, the races that Frank had, maybe like a more one-on-one cat thing that Butch had. It's possible, certainly. I mean, if they want to review that again. And more QOL, I'm sure. Quality of life. Just to satisfy all those people who don't like the house gameplay, like me maybe, and of course like in-game reference bestiary. I mean, Afterbirth for Isaac added the bestiary, or was it Afterbirth Plus? One of those that did. So that could be a thing in Mewgenics too. And I'm thinking with coming back to Isaac DLCs, you also had a whole new mode added, and perhaps Mewgenics could have something like that, like something like Greed Mode, which is kind of like a more cut down, condensed version of the game that you can enjoy quickly, even though Greed Mode is like, I don't think it's really condensed. It's more like, I guess a little bit, but, you know, maybe it's something like I explained earlier, like dailies, and Dr. Beanie's gives you cats or something, pre-bred CRISPR cats or whatever, and you take those on an adventure, and, you know, you get your marks or whatever. Again, it could be daily runs. You're like, here's your cats for the day. They have these items, they have these collars or whatever. Just go take them on an adventure. Go succeed. You know, if they did that, you know, Mewgenics might go from a top 100 game for me to top 10. So we'll see about that. And of course, they cut NPCs from the 2013 era. So down here, this is from the old Team Meat blog. Mewgenics had more NPCs in its world. You have this guy with a bag on his head, a secret admirer named Stacy. I mean, Stacy's the name of the cat that Dr. Beans has, so maybe something like that. And you know, it's possible. And of course, one thing I think they are testing on Twitter is a new game plus. So I take it like you have all your expansions, upgrades, but you just go through like all the areas again and unlock them again. I don't know how, maybe it gets more difficult too. I know Edmund described like, I'm implementing a mechanic that's hard, and like maybe it's new game plus. I think that's probably a confirmed thing for the DLCs as well. All right, that's pretty much all I have to say about Mewgenics. What do you think? Do you like my ideas? Do you like my ideas on Mewgenics? My opinions on them? Were they good? Were they bad? Do you think you know Edmund Miller more than me? You think you know what he's doing more than I do? Well, I want to hear it. Comment down below. Got to get that algorithm going. I mean, I don't know. Comment not just because, I need the algorithm to go. Just comment because you also have ideas of your own that are interesting and informative and exciting, and you also want to relive them. And this is a great place to do it. So, or, you know, maybe I'm just rambling like a schizophrenic, mentally ill retard. So that's also possible. In the interim, as I await your comments and your reception, I'm going to be listening to The Binding of Isaac Sacrilege, which is a great soundtrack mod that is coming out on May 15th, which is like a continuation of the Flash Isaac soundtrack. And I will be making a video about this as well. I kind of hinted and rumored and commented about it in some areas. So I definitely recommend it. Oh my god, this Mausoleum theme is so fucking good!